Run through who we're with tonight in the building.
So she's so lovely right here.
Yo,
She's so lovely.
she's so lovely, man.
She's so lovely.
You know what it is. Check it out.
Weekend, baby.
Weekend.
You don't know what's in store. You know what you're here for.
The thing is, following January 31st, 2025, TheWeeknd is officially over. After a career spanning over 15 years, almost 2 months ago, TheWeeknd just released his final album, the highly anticipated and critically acclaimed Hurry Up Tomorrow. And it has been quite a time to be alive. TheWeeknd is without a doubt one of the biggest cultural forces on the planet. From his incredibly successful music career, to his philanthropy, to his interesting acting career so far. It is near impossible to escape the influence of this once-in-a-generation hitmaker. If you haven't been as tapped into rap and R&B in the past 2 years, TheWeeknd has been working on his final albums as TheWeeknd, ending his career the same way it started, with a trilogy of projects. This new trilogy consists of 2020's After Hours, 2022's Dawn FM, and now 2025's Hurry Up Tomorrow. Now that all three are out and this is the final Weeknd album, I think it's the most appropriate time to understand why he's deciding to end it here. Abel has talked about his feelings towards the Weeknd character, and he believes that it's something he's mastered. He feels like there's nothing left to say, and that it's time to wrap up the character. So in this video, I'm going to do more than just break down Hurry Up Tomorrow. Today, we're going to take a deeper analysis of the Weeknd character from the beginning, and then give a more in-depth breakdown of this final trilogy, so we can see how the Weeknd story started, and then see if he was able to give this character a satisfying conclusion. Another thing worth noting is that I think this is going to be my 100th video on this channel, and I wanted to do something special. I will talk more about this towards the end of the video, but the Weeknd's music holds a very special place in my heart, and I felt that it was probably the best opportunity to make a video appreciating his discography. You can tell it's a special LxgendaryWill video because the Energy Sword chain is back. But the thing is, I feel like we should just immediately jump in. Now, I spoke about the Weeknd's origin story very briefly in the Lust video from No One Wants to Fall to Heaven, a series you should check out, by the way, if you have time. It's only 6 hours. But before we start this video, it's quite important that we take a deeper dive to understand his past and understand who the Weeknd really is. And also, before we continue though, I must give a slight disclaimer that this video is based off of my interpretation of the Weeknd's music. Music, like any art form, is up to interpretation. You might not agree with some of the conclusions that I draw towards the end of this video. Hell, I'm sure that some of the things I might say might not even be what Abel had in mind. And that's totally fine. I genuinely encourage you to voice your own opinions and thoughts in the comments. I read them all. And one thing to also note, I won't be using Abel and the Weeknd interchangeably. You will see why as we progress. I also do need to give kind of a major trigger warning. The Weeknd's discography is admittedly very dark, and we will constantly be discussing things like substance abuse, emotional manipulation and abuse, and self-harming. So if these topics do make you uncomfortable, this is your warning to either click off and watch any of the other great programming on my YouTube channel, or just to proceed with caution. Born Abel Tesfaye on February 16, 1990, Abel was born in Toronto, Canada, to Ethiopian immigrants, I apologize in advance, Samarwit Hailu, his mother, and Tesfaye, his father, whom he gets his middle and last name from. The two would shortly split after Abel's birth, and Abel would go on to be raised Christian as a single child in a one-parent home in Scarborough, a particularly rough neighborhood in Toronto. And his religious upbringing will be very important for this video. His late grandmother taught him their native language, Amharic, with Abel growing up to be trilingual, knowing Amharic, English, and French, going to a French immersion school in his childhood, as again, he's Canadian. Abel unfortunately grew up in poverty with his grandmother and mother. His mother worked tirelessly as a nurse to provide for her and Abel, while he, as you can imagine, had quite a reckless childhood. At just age 11, he was already getting into drugs, smoking weed with his friends from school. As he would get older, he would also go on to discover harder drugs like ketamine, MDMA, and of course, cocaine, even going to shoplift to support these addictions. According to Abel, he grew up very lonely, which seems true. He didn't have many friends at the time, his mother was always working, and he had little to no interaction with his father, only seeing him about 2 to 3 times during his childhood. He truly did have a tough time, and things only got worse. Abel would attend 2 high schools and end up dropping out of both. ending his education journey prematurely in 2007 at the mere age of 17, just a bit before he could have graduated. But to be fair, if I was a teenager in 2007, I probably would not be going to school either, because that's the same year Halo 3 came out. Yes! We got the Halo reference in the video. Okay, we've met the quota. We're good now. Look, I know the game came out technically after he would have dropped out, but Abel is known to be like a huge fan of cinema. In fact, he wanted to study cinema professionally before dropping out and pursuing music. So I think my headcanon works. Plus, also, his love of cinema will be very important for this video as well. He would go on to move into a one-bedroom apartment with 2 of his friends, immediately with the idea of making music. Like many of the other musicians I've discussed on this channel, he already had a liking for music and was lucky to be born with an incredible voice. Many old colleagues and friends recount him singing in the hallways of their high school, getting hyped up by his friends and classmates to keep going, even telling him to audition for Canadian Idol, which is exactly like American Idol, but is worse because it's not American. Yeehaw. His first musical venture was a rap duo with former friend Jesse Dempster under the duo Bullies and Nerds. Very high school sounding rap name, consisting of members Jesse Ray and Ken Kane, one of Abel's first ever monikers. According to Jesse, their music was heavily inspired by Pharrell Williams, as he is a songwriter and producer who jumps between genres very often, as the two would do in their youth. And that genre jumping seems to carry to many of his other music influences. Abel has gone on record and said that some of his biggest musical influences have been a myriad of different artists, like the late David Bowie, 9 Inch Nails, Wu-Tang Clan, Daft Punk, and the late Michael Jackson, especially the late Michael Jackson. And also, regrettably, R. Kelly. He said this before we all knew about the stuff. The two, however, grew apart around the same time that Abel had dropped out and moved out of his mother's home. And 2007 to 2009 would go on to be some of the hardest parts of Abel's youth. Abel would eventually find himself homeless for a substantial amount of time. He and his friends living a hedonistic lifestyle, filled with hard drugs, meaningless sex, hiding from their issues. He would even find himself in jail on occasion for some of his petty crimes like shoplifting. Abel would also find himself bed-hopping quite often, telling girls how much he loved them just so he could have a place to sleep for the night. He only started properly getting on his feet when he found a job folding clothes at an American Apparel store. One of the cool things about being in the internet age is being able to see these videos of Abel pre-fame. The most famous of these videos is the one that I just showed you in the intro, where Abel is stopped in the street by someone with a video camera, with him singing the first line of what would go on to be the intro track to his first project. It's truly amazing to be able to see these humble beginnings. While still getting on his feet, just like another well-known Canadian singer, Abel got his start on YouTube, uploading music to the channel Abel Official in August of 2009, finally adopting his moniker as TheWeeknd. That name in reference to the very weekend where he left his home, dropped out, and never came back. The reason why TheWeeknd is missing an E is because he didn't want to get into legal trouble with the band TheWeeknd. And fun LxgendaryWill fact, when I was younger, I assumed that Abel was just a front man in a band given his name. And given the fact that I googled it incorrectly technically, I was quite shocked to learn that it was just one. His music from 2009 doesn't appear on his YouTube channel anymore. It's been fully wiped, and even I couldn't find much of anything on the Wayback Machine. But his old and defunct MySpace is in the channel description, linking to some old songs. And there is also a famous EP of leaked songs from this era, commonly referred to as the Noise EP. The Noise was the name of a group of producers that were working with Abel when he was still homeless, trying to sell demos to mainstream artists to make a living. And on a whim, they decided to just leak all of their unreleased work with him. The following year, Abel would meet a producer by the name of Jeremy Rose, and the two would go on to work very closely together on Abel's first project. Abel would then create a new channel in February of 2011 under the name XOXXXOOOXO and would consecutively upload music to this channel. As mentioned in the last video as well, TheWeeknd was initially clouded in this mystique, with the only thing that you would see in his videos were the now iconic but at the time unknown EXO logo, followed by close-up pictures of random girls or blurry and unclear pictures of Abel himself, linking to his Twitter, SoundCloud, and later down the line, website in the video description. The first 9 videos uploaded to Abel's channel would go up to make his first ever project. Released on March 21st, 2011 to his SoundCloud and a free zip file, his debut mixtape, the now iconic House of Balloons. I'm debating on whether to change the lights or not. If you're new here, I normally try to change the lights and forget to change the lights for every album I discuss. But I feel like the red is it just matches The Weeknd so well. That freaky ass nigga. One last little disclaimer before we continue here though. For the sake of time, and also because everyone known to man has made videos breaking down the trilogy, I won't be doing like intense track-by-track breakdowns of the first 7 projects in The Weeknd's discography, as that would easily make this video 6 hours long. I'm already probably going to surpass the FML video in length with this one. But instead I will discuss each album's story and main themes to see how the character of The Weeknd has evolved, potentially skipping over some tracks that might not contribute to the main major narrative of each album. I cannot stress this point enough. Though all these projects do connect quite coherently to create the greater mythos of The Weeknd, they still have their own self-contained stories featuring multiple moving parts, subplots, and general themes. For the first 7 projects, I am merely breaking down each overarching narrative as it will relate to the final trilogy. If you are interested in getting a much deeper understanding of these first 7 projects, I'll be linking some really good ones in the description. But me first, I'm more important than them. Despite me trying to cut this down, I know this video is still going to be long as hell. House of Balloons dives into the loneliness of The Weeknd's hedonistic lifestyle. The House of Balloons is a real place in Toronto. In a 2015 interview with Rolling Stone, Abel revealed that the original House of Balloons was one of the first places he lived when he dropped out. He and his friends would throw parties in there, and of course, invite girls over. In an attempt to make the parties feel a bit more celebratory and not sad in that rinky-dink little house, they would have balloons. The project cover perfectly displays this theme of loneliness and hedonism. We see on the cover a naked woman in a bathtub completely surrounded by balloons. What looks like maybe a fun scene shows someone who has truly hit rock bottom, hiding themselves behind the balloons, almost signifying that the extravagant life they live is merely a facade meant to hide their true feelings of despair. Even just by her body language, it feels like she almost didn't even want to be photographed, making more of an effort to hide herself from the camera, only seeing her arms, shoulder, and left breast. That has been censored on all streaming releases. Each of the covers on these first 3 mixtapes would take heavy inspiration from old American Apparel ads from the 2000s, the place that Abel had worked at around the time that these were created. The mixtape starts off on the track High for This, with Abel introducing a prospective lover into his lifestyle, telling her that if she truly wants to be a part of Abel's life, it would be in her best interests to be high for it. And in the next few tracks, it would seem that things are starting off well, with track 2, What You Need, being a classic Weeknd slow jam about how he's going to please her, doing all of this while apparently she has a man at home, and the title track, House of Balloons / Glass Table Girls, talking about the parties that they're attending and the drugs that they're taking, trying to convince her, and really himself, that this will continue to bring them joy. With the drug and Glass Table Girls most likely being coke. From the jump here, you can see that Abel is not the greatest person. He is pushing a girl who is already booed up, mind you, into his lifestyle to fulfill his own desires. And you somewhat see this selfishness come up with the next 2 tracks, The Morning and Wicked Games, with him almost immediately realizing that this isn't a viable relationship for him to be in. As on The Morning, he talks about his aspirations as a musician and what he's been working for, recounting to his listeners that indeed the money is the motive and that Cali is the mission. And then on Wicked Games, he discusses how he doesn't see longevity in his relationship, and despite that, hopes to just keep the lie going to both please himself and keep his emotions in balance, to truly little to no avail. The following tracks, The Party and the After Party, and Coming Down, so many ands in that sentence, sees The Weeknd trying to salvage what is left of this interesting relationship, as he's already starting to become emotionally distant from this girl. Yeah. And the Boyfriend of the Year award goes to, the 2 attend another party, and Abel encourages her to partake, for a lack of a better term. And following that party, Abel decides to take her back home for their own personal after party. Good lord, this man is so horny. Both assumedly quite high, with Abel starting to feel a disconnect between him and this girl, wanting her to give him more attention. Joji reference. And even threatening a bit of self-harm. Second Joji reference. Then, on Coming Down, Abel talks about how, when he starts sobering up, his genuine feelings for this girl start creeping back up. making him regretful of being unfaithful to her while he was high and at that party. But the project would ultimately end on the knowing, with Abel getting bitter with this girl, saying that he knows that she is cheating on him as well, going on to say that he already knew and that he doesn't care, even though deep down, one, he knows he ain't shit either, and two, he's hurt that someone who he cared for is slowly becoming the victim of the exact same circumstance and mentality that he is in. And it's mainly his fault, but still not willing to acknowledge his part in this entirely, ending admittedly on quite a gloomy note. The thing is, House of Balloons was not meant to glorify or encourage The Weeknd's lifestyle in his teens. In this project, he shows that living so carelessly can never lead to a real connection and will always lead to you hurting the ones you love and yourself in the process. I wish I could have done a bigger deep dive on this tape and just the entire trilogy in general, because it is so underrated. I honestly feel like I undersold it. This project is truly amazing and is quite the project to debut your career with. Abel had already just knocked it out of the park and had truly hit the ground running. Despite The Weeknd still being this mysterious figure on the internet, he was already picking up steam in the underground with the steady releases of each song from the last tape. Oh my god, Abel invented being edgy and mysterious, holy shit, I just realized. When he recounts that his coworkers at American Apparel were bumping his first 3 singles at work, not realizing that they were working with the guy who made them. Later in 2011, Abel would be famously somewhat scouted by another up-and-coming Toronto artist. And of course, I'm talking about the BBL6 god and the world's biggest sore loser himself, Drizzy Drake. Drake had already taken a bit of a liking to Abel and what he was doing, and shouted out the first 3 singles and the project itself, and also invited Abel to perform at Drake's OVO Fest in July 2011. That performance just shortly following Abel's first ever live performance at the Mod Club, now known as the Access Club. Famously, or infamously as well, Drake had taken 5 songs that were originally slated to be on House of Balloons for his sophomore album and best project to date, Take Care. Those tracks, of course, being Practice, The Ride, Shot For Me, and the iconic tracks Marvin's Room and Crew Love, with The Weeknd's original cut second verse surfacing online. The Crew Love single would be Abel's first ever song to chart, peaking at 80 on the Billboard Hot 100. Abel still has writing credits on a lot of those songs, which, not to glaze, are some of the best songs on that project. I don't even think that's glaze. The Weeknd helped write Marvin's Room. That is like the most well-known sad Drake song ever made, come on. He also did the chorus and backing vocals on tracks like The Ride and the classic Good Ones Go interlude. Drake was so much of a fan of The Weeknd's music, he very much wanted to sign him to OVO, but would later decide to establish EXO on his own, believing that signing to another artist would hinder his potential to be successful independently. And the thing is, if you look at almost everyone on the OVO roster that is not Party Next Door, you can tell Abel made the right choice. Gee, I sure hope this doesn't drive a wedge between them, leading to a major beef between another former friend 13 years later. But despite the growing success of the project, he was far from finished. He had dropped the next song for his second project just 2 months after the release of House of Balloons. But unlike the last project, would only release 2 singles and Abel's famous Trust Issues remix before the proper release of the tape, the rest coming to YouTube the day of and after release. So then, on August 18th, 2011, just 7 months after the release of House of Balloons, Abel would drop his second mixtape, Thursday. Thursday continues telling the story of Abel's reckless youth, with Abel taking an interest in a new girl, relegating the girl from House of Balloons to a side hoe that he only meets on Thursday. The cover demonstrates how the lover of Abel's is in emotional distress. The main love interest, as portrayed by model Megan Callan, is shown through 3 days of the week: Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. On Wednesday, she looks very unhappy, lonely, and a bit disheveled. The picture in full black and white, just like the last project. But then on Thursday, she is in complete color, surrounded by balloons. She appears to be genuinely happy, with her hair properly done, in full makeup, and smiling. The balloons clearly link the last project to this one, with the major difference now being that this lover is not covered by the balloons, but is standing among them happily. This is, however, contrasted by Friday, where we see this lover looking a bit more disheveled once again, with her clothes undone, her hair unkempt once more, and her makeup running. And even though Friday's picture is in color, you can see it start to drain, symbolizing how her happiness is very swiftly followed by a wave of depression. The project starts on Lonely Star, where Abel once more confesses to this girl, who we will refer to as the Thursday girl for the time being, that he can treat her like a queen despite calling out some of her apparent faults. Please keep in mind, he snagged her while she was in a relationship and got her hooked onto drugs. On this track, the Thursday girl, played by Abel himself through a voice changer, tells him that she's happy to be there for him on Thursday, despite knowing deep down that Abel is running around on her. It's clear from the last tape and especially on this intro track that here TheWeeknd is incredibly manipulative, playing with her emotions to the point where she has convinced herself that her current relationship with him is worth his trouble. Good God, that's sad. Preceding this intro, however, is Life of the Party. No, not the good one. Where Abel introduces us to his new love interest. He tries convincing this rich girl to start engaging in his lifestyle by coercing her with coke. Jesus Christ, man, oh my God. Continuing his streak of being a great guy, we get the title track, Thursday. Here, Abel reaffirms to the Thursday girl that he will be ready for her on Thursday, as he's constantly cycling through women throughout the week. She's starting to show more of a clear, strong attachment to him, attempting to hit this man up on other days of the week, only for Abel to continuously remind her that her turn comes on Thursday, reaffirming the emotional spiral that she's going through on the cover. And I feel like I shouldn't be glazing this song because it is so unbelievably toxic, but it bangs. I'm sorry, this shit bangs so hard. You know that whole meme of like, this song isn't, headphones aren't enough, I need the song inside me, I need to be the Thursday girl, bro, I swear to God. Following Thursday is The Zone with Drake, the only featured artist on the entire original trilogy. I'm not counting Juicy J on the next project because he more or less just does a monologue and not a verse. On this track, we get peak Drake. He's never coming back. That makes me so sad. And TheWeeknd talking about the girls that they're bedding. TheWeeknd is getting ready to bed the rich girl from Life of the Party, but before he does so, he needs to get in his zone by sparking up and sipping lean, even proclaiming that he will make love to the Thursday girl through the rich girl. That is some that is some toxic shit. Oh my goodness. The song is still hard as hell though, I'm not gonna lie. With Drake giving us a fire-ending verse. What's more, I sure hope that their friendship doesn't dwindle because Drake got bitter and this leads to a large-scale beef in Drake's future downfall. Following The Zone, we get the next two tracks, The Birds, Part 1 and 2. In Part 1, Abel, potentially sobered up, realizes how shitty of a partner he is and pleads to the Thursday girl that she shouldn't fall in love with someone like him. It seems that potentially after the last song, he is realizing slowly how poorly he treats her, but instead of trying to better himself, basically asks her to run away. Distraught by this news, Part 2 starts abruptly, with presumably the Thursday girl crying, followed by a gunshot sound, meaning one of two things. Either one, the Thursday girl got mad at Abel and shot him, or she shot herself. This track is considered the darkest song in his discography for a reason. Abel seems to show some level of remorse for hurting her, but tries to deflect blame from himself by repeating that he's just a bird. Firsthand, Abel is forced to face the consequences of his actions. This girl was someone who he looped into his lifestyle back on House of Balloons. Despite telling us listeners and her numerous times that he cared for her, he couldn't break himself free of the shackles of his lifestyle and ended up hurting her in the process, seemingly getting her to the point of suicide. Or, in the case of this song, more or less an emotional suicide, making her fully numb, fully succumbing to Abel. God. The song ends with the fading sounds of crows cawing, which of course symbolizes death. Abel then starts winding down the project on Gone. In this track, TheWeeknd decides to go out partying again and deciding to indulge in drugs heavily, potentially trying to get over the shitty things he's realizing he's doing. Ending these songs by going back to his crib to attempt to have sex with one of his girls, despite being, well, gone. Then, the original project ends on the track Heaven or Las Vegas. On this track, in a brief moment of self-reflection, Abel tells us he believes that part of the reason why he lives such a reckless life is due to an absent father. He believes that not having a father figure forced him to look for validation in hedonism, taking drugs and sleeping around. The reason why I clarified, though, that Heaven or Las Vegas was the original project closer was because there is technically a different outro to this project. Not to get too far ahead in the future, but Abel would release these first 3 mixtapes as a long 3-disc compilation album titled Trilogy. And on it, each project would end with a new bonus track. The House of Balloons CD would end with 28, a track where Abel mourns the death of his ambiguity as he's starting to become a mainstream star. And Thursday's CD ends with the track Valerie. We come to learn that Valerie is the name of the Thursday girl. In this track, Abel once more admits to Valerie that he does in fact love her, even though they're both aware that Abel is constantly cheating on her. Valerie has seemingly decided to continue residing in Will for Ignorance as long as she still gets to be with Abel in some capacity, ending Thursday on yet again a somber note. Thursday continues to explore the recklessness of Abel's hedonistic lifestyle as he comes to recognize how toxic he's been, but unfortunately is still trapped in the cycle. It is a fantastic narrative for sure, but is definitely the weakest part of the trilogy. It's the longest out of the 3, and it does feel like it drags it sometimes, particularly Life of the Party. I'm sorry, I'm just not that big a fan. I can take it or leave it, really. It sometimes feels like a lazier rehashing of themes from the last project, but still a decent tape at its core. Now, Weeknd's 2011 had already been quite turbulent with the success of the first 2 projects and his co-sign and friendship with Drizzy. And after the proper release of Take Care and only 1 single drop on his YouTube, on December 21st, 2011, we would get the final installment of this trilogy, Echoes of Silence. As the final installment in his trilogy, Echoes of Silence starts to mark a growing point for Abel. He's finally starting to see some success in the music industry, and he starts to reflect on his past and realize how much his current hedonistic lifestyle is holding him back. Now being surrounded more and more by groupies and people who don't actually care for him. Starting to properly realize that if he doesn't abandon this life soon, he won't be able to finally pursue success in music. The cover's meaning is a bit more ambiguous than the last 2, as we see the silhouette of a girl in a dimly lit room against a red background. The color red can be used to symbolize many things, but in the case of this project, the most likely connotations are probably danger, sin, and or lust. The mixtape starts on the track DD. This is the Weeknd's cover of the Michael Jackson classic Dirty Diana, with new, darker production from Elangelo, a longtime collaborator of Abel's, and also an in-house producer at EXO. As mentioned previously, MJ was one of Abel's biggest musical inspirations, and Abel has even said that Dirty Diana was his favorite song of all time. This is the only cover song in Abel's solo discography, though he did also famously cover I Don't Wanna Know, originally by Mario Winans, on Metro Boomin and 21 Savage's Creepin', a modernized version of the 90s classic. And fun fact, the original song has writing and production credits from P. Diddy. And Creepin' itself would get a Diddy remix a little bit after the album's release. The Weeknd making 2 songs with Diddy within 9 months of each other is fucking crazy. Anyway, despite DD being a cover song, it is a perfect way to intro this project, as it matches the main mixtape's story and subject matter. In the original song, MJ discusses toxic groupies that he's encountered, pleading to them to be left alone, knowing well their true intentions with him. And we will see as the project progresses, this couldn't be a more fitting opener, really. Following DD, we get the first original song on the project, Montreal. This is the only song in Abel's discography where he sings in French. The title of this track, of course, being the city of Montreal in Quebec, Canada, the French province of the country, a place that I visited before. For the intro and the background of the chorus, Abel interpolates the song Laisse tomber les filles by France Gall, I think. Originally a track about female liberation. Kind of ironic for this man to say for that. En fait, j'ai besoin de clarifier. France Gall was a very popular artist in France in the 60s and 70s. And this song is not about female liberation per se, but became a female empowerment anthem in the country, written by a man, funnily enough, Serge Gainsbourg, a very well-known yet very provocative songwriter and actor. Laisse tomber les filles was a breakup song, talking about a dude who moves from women to women, with God telling this man that one day all the women he tries pursuing will know what kind of man he is. In that one day, they will all start denying his advances. And it's quite an appropriate interpolation, as Abel in Montreal is very much playing from the man's perspective here. In this track, and in the past 2 albums, he fits this archetype perfectly. And, fun LxgendaryWill fact, je parle français et je savais déjà traduire toutes les chansons en anglais. Sauf une ligne, I'm still learning. The best translation I could give for the chorus is, forget the girls, one day they will forget you. Yes, I cried, but on this day, I won't cry. It's not a direct translation, but it makes more sense. Abel has recounted before that a lot of the project was made in Montreal, saying that he faced a lot of darkness while there. In this track in particular, Abel discusses a girl who he realized was in love with him before she lost feelings, making it ultimately too late for Abel to try and attempt to court her. Following Montreal, we have Outside, another classic Weeknd slow jam where he talks about how he's going to please this girl so well, she won't even want to leave his place. So I'm literally editing the video like right now, and the thing that came to my mind throughout this entire process has just been like, what if Abel in real life actually is just trash and bad? like for real, like what if like one of his like ex-girlfriends comes out and is like, yeah, we had a conversation about the bedroom and how like he wasn't satisfying me properly. Like I asked him to eat me out and he didn't do it correctly, and I told him like, you need to go for my clitoris, and he was like, speak English, I don't know what that means. While saying this though, he reaffirms that they won't be making love, but is willing to pretend for her. He's still going at it, ladies and gentlemen, and theys, and sorry, there's not a term for y'all yet. I'm sorry. Following Outside, we get the two-part track EXO / The Host, and then the track Initiation. Part 1 of EXO and The Host is another party anthem, with Abel trying to convince a girl to roll with him and the EXO crew to indulge in their lifestyle. Love this song, by the way. Part 2, The Host, serves more as a prelude to Initiation, where in both tracks, the main subject matter is Abel trying to convince a girl to join his lifestyle once more. Hearing Abel actively shout out OVO EXO nowadays is so peculiar. Songs are still a banger though. After those tracks, we then get Same Old Song, with that aforementioned ending monologue from Juicy J. On this track, Abel discusses an older lover who dumped him, but is now trying to get back into his life now that he's popping off. On the topic of Abel's rising fame, we get to the track The Fall. On this song, Abel talks about how he knows that there is a potential for his career to fall, and if so, he wouldn't be scared to face it, as he's already hit rock bottom, or the ground, before. Continuing the discussion of Abel's rising fame, on the penultimate track, Next, he discusses once more how girls only started gaining interest in him when he started becoming more popular. But the original mixtape ends on the title track, Echoes of Silence. Which, small side tangent by the way, this song sounds, maybe I'm crazy, this song sounds so much like Metro Boomin and Travis Scott's Only One interlude. A song that I also broke down in the last video. Guys, go watch my videos. I'm really good. Like seriously, when re-listening to this project, I put Only One on a like 6-second crossfade, and they're almost perfect for each other. I refuse to believe that Metro did not take like a bit of inspiration from this song. I don't know, it's just so interesting. I'm surprised there already isn't a mashup of the two existing on the internet. Hell, I'll put one out if need be. In this somber closer, Abel, most likely speaking to Valerie, reflects on their relationship, with Valerie still begging for Abel to stay with her, despite the both of them acknowledging how unhealthy and fruitless their relationship was. Throughout this trilogy, Abel continues telling Valerie that their relationship won't move forward as she hoped, but she would still stick by him despite what he puts her through. And Abel continues to go with this arrangement because he also does seem to have real feelings for Valerie, but is too consumed in his life of hedonism to give a proper relationship a shot. Despite Valerie objectively being the bigger victim between the two of them, both of them stepped into this arrangement willingly and are now both suffering in some way because of it, with Abel questioning her if she's a masochist. But even then, you can kind of sense that Abel is projecting a bit, blaming a lot of Valerie's pain on her own doing, but clearly showing signs of regret, dragging her down into his emptiness, and also being sad about the coming end of his relationship with Valerie, potentially admitting that he also liked the thrill, ending the OG mixtape on an incredibly somber note. But again, the story technically ends on the trilogy outro, Till Dawn, in parentheses, Here Comes the Sun. As mentioned earlier, when the trilogy re-release happened, each mixtape got a new outro track. And Till Dawn, great foreshadowing by the way, is the true ending to the trilogy. On this song, Abel summarizes his tumultuous relationship with Valerie, talking about the cycle that she's been in, how she would complain about her boyfriend, be with Abel, be mad at herself for cheating, and try to remain faithful just to go back to him the next week. But as the chorus states, the dawn, or the end, is coming. Abel and Valerie seem to amicably end their relationship, while seeming to leave the door open for other things in the future. Whether it be more hookups, one-night stands, or a real relationship, we'll never truly know. But the dawn also signifies a new beginning for Abel's life as well. The title of this track, Till Dawn, is quite significant, and not just because of certain things he teased 10 years later in the future, but because despite ending ambiguously, this still shows a clear sign of change in Abel. He started off this trilogy fully indulging in hedonism and bringing Valerie down along with him for the ride, just to end up hurting her and himself in the process. And now during his rising fame, he starts to see the downsides of hedonism and seems to grow a bit tired of it. And, while not fully admitting his role in this, sees Valerie as an unfortunate, poignant reminder of the darker parts of the life that he was living, and clearly wants to make some kind of change. Thus, Trilogy somewhat ends in positive yet bittersweet spirits, eager to see where the Weeknd story ends up next. The Weeknd's I just realized I forgot to change the lights for each album. God damn it! What was that?
I got the Louis shoes.
The Weeknd's trilogy was probably one of the greatest debuts an artist could have. Releasing what are now considered cornerstone projects in R&B and writing most of them between the ages of 19 and 21 is the mark of a truly once-in-a-generation talent. And it gave record labels a reason to take a chance on him and see how far this wacky-haired Canadian man could go. Speaking of going, just like the Tyler video, I have to go up in the middle of recording. I mean, who even goes to court for 5 DUIs? That's not that many, right? The government got off my back. I just promised to pay back all the fines and nothing else happened in the courtroom. Just don't look up LxgendaryWill Courtroom Incident 2025. Now, in 2011, Abel and his managers, which, very sorry if I pronounced their names wrong, Wasim Salebi, Amir Esmilan, known more commonly as Cash XO, and his friend Lamar Taylor, who had taken the pictures that Abel had used for his songs and even made the tape covers, started XO as an unofficial imprint that Abel released music under. The full abbreviation, XOTWOD, stands for Ecstasy and Oxycontin Till We Overdose. The Weeknd would sign to Republic Records under UMG in September of 2012, fully establishing XO as its own label imprint. 2 months afterward, the Trilogy compilation would finally be released on November 13th, 2012, debuting at number 4 on the Billboard Top 200. The cover of this project is simply a screenshot from the Rolling Stone music video with the title above. The project would get most of its samples cleared, except for the use of Aaliyah's Rock the Boat, used in the original intro to What You Need, and it would be altered for its release. The same issue arose with a soundbite from the anime Fate/Stay Night. This monologue is featured towards the end of Coming Down, and was removed from the Trilogy re-release as well. The Trilogy album would come after another year of success for Abel, notably performing at places like Coachella and Wireless Festival. The only other new track from Abel would be a feature on Wiz Khalifa's Remember You from his hit album ONIFC. But then we get to the big 2013. Following the success of Trilogy, Abel has been touring quite a bit, and his experiences touring the world would be a heavy inspiration for his next project. He would announce its title in March of 2013, originally set for an August 2013 release, but pushed back a month, potentially due to Amazon leaking the release date early. In May of 2013, Abel started his rollout by dropping the title track and the first single for his upcoming album. 2 months later, he would release the music video for the next song, Belong to the World, released as a single the next day. And within the same month, we would also get Love in the Sky as a single. And a month after that, we would get the final single, Live For, with Drake. This being the two's final official collab, outside of an unofficial remix to a song on the next project, but we're not there yet. I sure hope. The hype was truly at an all-time high. The Trilogy was given such high critical and fan acclaim and had people hyped to see what the Weeknd's big major debut studio album would be. And we would get that answer on September 10th, 2013, when Abel released his incredibly divisive debut album, Kissland. This album is the most controversial in Abel's discography. In terms of streams, it is his least popular album and has split fans since release. You either loved it or you hated it. The album cover features a cropped picture of Abel in a hotel suite. The cover's true meaning isn't super explicit like the last three, but fans have pointed out similarities in this cover to the cover for British band Portishead's 1994 debut album, Dummy. It wouldn't be super surprising that Abel got inspiration from Portishead, as he would go on to sample them on this very album, though the frontman of Portishead, Jeff Barrow, wasn't a big fan of that. Yeah. I sure hope for Jeff's sake that never happens again. While the album cover is admittedly kind of boring, the back cover and the single cover arts are actually pretty cool. Now, I don't know if I can show these covers on YouTube, but the single covers all feature different pictures of adult film actresses London Keys and Asa Akira going at it pretty intensely, with Japanese text over them and some kind of TV distortion. The album is very cinematic in sound, with Abel taking heavy inspiration from horror filmmakers. The album's marketing and music videos have the world in Kissland take place in this futuristic Blade Runner-esque dystopia. And I'm not gonna lie, TheWeeknd's music videos themselves deserve their own separate video, truly. They deserve their own analyses on how they link to each project and expand on their themes really well. But as again, we're kind of on a time crunch here, and I am also admittedly not the most equipped for that conversation. Again, I will be linking proper things in the description. The album's main narrative, as described by Abel himself, is about TheWeeknd's transition into celebrity life, a life that he is not fully acquainted with, featured Weeknd reference Lamau, this uncertainty frightening him and leading him to make poor choices during his tour around the world. These issues come up during his EXO tour life, one could say. Oh, fuck you, I'm a college student making this on a time crunch. You come up with a better joke then. The album's main narrative takes place in only select portions. The album starts on the tracks Professional and The Town. On Professional, TheWeeknd recounts a relationship he has had with a woman of the night, if you catch my drift, drawing parallels between how the two conduct their lives, as both of them have experienced extreme hardships to obtain their riches. Then on The Town, TheWeeknd talks about a girl who left him for another guy, just to get dumped herself and come crawling back to TheWeeknd. This song is also an extended metaphor for TheWeeknd leaving Toronto and exploring the world, as he had never left Canada before achieving success. But TheWeeknd's main conflict starts on the track Adaptation. In this song, TheWeeknd talks about how he fumbled his current lover, instead choosing to abandon her and indulge in celebrity life. TheWeeknd has clear regrets for making this choice, but decides to mask his regret by claiming that he will eventually get over it. Then, tracks 4 and 8 detail some of the escapades that TheWeeknd starts to engage in. Like, for example, Love in the Sky is about, well, very, very Weeknd things, and Belong to the World is about how TheWeeknd is catching himself falling in love with one of his groupies, realizing that what they share is not a real love, and that she wouldn't be good for him, as she kind of belongs to the world. The song has also been interpreted as TheWeeknd discussing his own growing tumultuous relationship with the music industry, and now how, as a celebrity, he also belongs to the world to some degree. Then, on Wanderlust, the most 80s sounding song from the album, probably because of the 80s sample, TheWeeknd contemplates the very meaning of love in the modern era. I wonder if he will experiment with this sound later in his career. That would never happen. And songs like Live For with Drake and the title track Kissland are mainly just Abel bragging about his success. Both songs getting music videos, one of which has a director's cut that is age restricted on YouTube because behind Abel in some scenes you very clearly see 3 naked women massaging each other with their mouths, if you catch my drift. God, this nigga is so fucking freaky. Oh my god. But the album starts to wind down on the final tracks, Pretty and Tears in the Rain. On Pretty, TheWeeknd returns home to learn that his partner had also been cheating on him. But instead of being angry and overreacting, don't watch the music video, he instead tells her that at the end of the day, he can please her better than her new man can, asking for a bit more time to be intimate together before the inevitable happens. Leading well into the outro track, Tears in the Rain. Here, Abel fully admits how badly he fucked up fumbling this girl, something that will become a very common theme in his music. This girl appears to be someone who knew Abel before the fame, and he just lost the last girl who might have genuine love for him. Now, as a public figure, he will constantly have to second guess whether women want him for him or because of who he is. He now fears that he will die alone and is forced to put up a facade that everything is okay while actively dying on the inside. Despite making an effort to move past the hedonism that consumed his youth and has hurt him before, he gets caught up in self-destruction once again, unfortunately ending Kissland on another heartbreaking note. I'll be honest, the Kissland album is one that truly deserves its own dedicated video, honestly. I summed up the main narrative of the album, but like Abel said himself, the album is its own universe, while still being connected to the overarching story of TheWeeknd. There are many different kinds of stories told on each individual track, and again, the music videos were probably some of the darkest and edgiest he's ever made. It is truly something that is deserving of like a proper deep dive, but not right now, not by me. After re-listening to this album multiple times for this video, I will say, I think it's a bit overhated, as there are definitely highlights like Professional, Adaptation, Belong to the World, Wanderlust, and the title track Kissland, but the highlights are indeed battling the lowlights. I appreciate its place in TheWeeknd's discography, especially as it wouldn't go on to inspire a future project, and this is a very admittedly important part of TheWeeknd's story, but I also understand why it is so divisive. The album debuted at number 2 on the Billboard 200 and was met with decently positive reviews from critics, but is still very much the black sheep of TheWeeknd's discography. The album would be supported by its North American tour, starting 4 days before the album's proper release and ending in November of that year. Despite the lackluster response to Kissland, 2014 was still another successful year for Abel. He would feature on Rick Ross's 2014 album Mastermind for its second most popular track, In Vain, and it would also feature on the unforgettable Or Not remix with I can't say Mustard anymore. I kind of ruined it for myself. With Mustard, Ty Dolla $ign, and Wiz Khalifa. One of his known freakiest verses to date. Still a banger though. So much of a banger that I'm sure that I stopped editing the video to go listen to this very song. But in terms of Abel originals, we would have to wait for the summer. In July of 2014, we would get the Lucy King of the Fall, with it being a companion music video for Abel's next release just a week and a half later, the all-time classic, Often, the first proper single for his next project. He even went on another tour in 2014, the King of the Fall tour, going on for just a bit over a month from September to October 2014. Abel was slowly starting his album rollout with a bang. The year would end on the release of the dual single Earned It / Where You Belong from the 50 Shades of Grey soundtrack on December 23rd of that year. It's nothing of note really. It's not like that song became one of Abel's first major hits, would peak at number 3 on the Billboard Hot 100, being Abel's first song to do so, win a Grammy, and even get nominated for an Oscar for Best Original Song. It's just some song from a bad movie. It's not like great soundtracks get paired with really shitty movies. When has that ever happened? So yeah, Abel was coming into 2015 already with a major hit, and just 3 months later would tease another one. During a now iconic performance at South by Southwest in 2015, Abel would tease an unfinished version of his next single, and the track that would later become his breakout smash hit. It was originally titled Mood Music, but would later be released as, of course, The Hills on May 27, 2015, immediately peaking at number 1, only getting beaten out by Abel's third and final single before release just a week later, Can't Feel My Face. The album would be formally announced on July 9th with its title and artwork. So just a little over a month later, after dominating the entire summer, on August 28th, 2015, Abel would drop the album that turned him into a pop superstar. 2015's iconic Grammy Award-winning Beauty Behind the Madness. Beauty Behind the Madness finds TheWeeknd just a bit after Kissland. As his fame starts to grow to meteoric heights, he unfortunately comes back to historic lows as he realizes that the life of hedonism he once lived in his youth is even more accessible now, and it will end up dragging him and a new prospective lover down to some of his darkest points. It is also the only Weeknd album to not feature a title track. The cover for this album is a ripped-up picture of Abel, stitched back together. The creator of the artwork, Callan Holloman, said in an interview with Complex that Abel and his team had come up with an 80% developed concept, going for a vintage Italian horror theme look, as she described. There are many different iterations of this album cover, but Abel took his time carefully choosing the one that he wanted, and we got the album cover we have today. And to this day, probably one of his most iconic. The album starts on the tracks Real Life and Losers with British singer-songwriter and producer Labyrinth. These tracks start off immediately in a reflective mood. On Real Life, Abel reflects on advice his mother gave him, telling him that he is his own worst enemy, as he is very self-destructive, with Abel also recounting the women that he has driven away in the past due to his self-destructive tendencies. Then on Losers, Abel reflects on how he dropped out of school to pursue his dreams, and feels that people aren't even worthy of advising him on how to conduct his life, almost immediately disavowing the advice that his mother gave him because, it did work out well for him. It worked out well for the most part. You'll see as this album progresses. We then get to the start of probably the most goated 5-track run in all of pop music, starting with Tell Your Friends. As I discussed in the FML video, this track was initially a Life of Pablo era throwaway that Kanye gave to Abel. Kanye is still being present on the song, just under a vocoder during the bridge section. This was also the track that I mentioned that had the unofficial Drake remix, where Drake talks about his, at the time, romance with Serena Williams. I wonder how that turned out. It debuted on Drake's OVO Sound Radio, but was never properly released as a single. This remix even coming after a supposed beef that started between the two following Kissland. I hope. On Tell Your Friends, TheWeeknd boasted success to the listeners, telling people that if they don't know who he is, they will come to know him. He also continues boosting his ego a bit, proudly proclaiming his recklessness. Another absolute classic that I probably have stopped editing again to listen to. We then get to the absolute classic track, Often. On this song, TheWeeknd discusses that, he has sex with women quite often. Must be nice. A lot of them being driven to sleep with him because of his fame. And despite the song boasting his sexual prowess, it seems that he is a bit tired of it, as the sampled song that I'm not even going to attempt to pronounce from Turkish singer Nuket Duru. I'm so sorry Turkish viewers. Her sample repeats, "Each day goes on for years. I'm tired of going alone." Leading well into... I actually broke this song down more in depth in the Lust video as well, more or less outside of the context of this album. But for the sake of time, we're mainly just going to summarize it. In what would become Abel's breakout smash hit, On the Hills, TheWeeknd discusses a tumultuous relationship he has with another celebrity. The celebrity cheating on her man with TheWeeknd. Yep, here we go again. What's that one Tame Impala song called? TheWeeknd has little to no remorse for her failing relationship and continuously reminds her that he mainly sees her as a booty call and is not interested in a more intimate connection. And also says that she can't judge him for being, not the most wholesome guy, because they're both very high profile figures that need to keep what they're doing under wraps. But towards the end of the song, you realize that TheWeeknd is merely putting up a facade. He is behaving so outwardly unconcerned towards her because he feels a real connection with her and is scared to show that for real. As the Amharic outro translates in English to, "I love you very much, my beauty, I love you very much, my love," hinting at a potential for wanting more. And just to quickly glaze this song, Abel chose this version out of an apparent 67 that he had made. And he chose very well. After the song's initial tease at 2015 South by Southwest, he went back in the studio with his producers and wanted to create the exact atmosphere from that show. That iconic scream before the beat drop wasn't even a part of the original song.
Friends know I only call you when it's hot.
That was added in after the fact, and Abel worked tirelessly to get it just right. And comparing the leaked version of the original and the South by Southwest performance and the song today, he accomplished that goal. The man cooked. He crafted a banger that is now diamond certified by RIA, and his first song to do so as well. The man cooked. The man cooked. And the cooking continues on Acquainted. On this track, he starts to ease up a bit on the toxicity and is seemingly admitting to catching proper feelings for this girl, only to backtrack and say that he's really happy that they're acquainted. He states that proclaiming that they are in love is dangerous, at least to TheWeeknd, as we have come to see already that love is a very hard concept for him to grasp. We then get to another smash hit, Can't Feel My Face. On this track, TheWeeknd is talking about his love for, cocaine. What many people seem to overlook when this song became popular is that TheWeeknd isn't singing about this girl he's really infatuated with. He's personifying cocaine as a girl who promises to ease his pain as he continues to indulge in her, despite knowing that she could be the death of him. I said this already, but you can really hear the MJ influence throughout his discography, but especially on this song. Another classic. We then get to the track Shameless, where this friends with benefits situation starts falling apart, as TheWeeknd basically tells her to just get over her guilt. Kinda brutal, man. As he has no shame in what they're doing, admitting to her that he does care for her as well, finally letting his true feelings come out. We then get to Earned It from the 50 Shades of Grey movie. And while many debate if this song can really be included in the album's narrative due to the fact that it was specifically written for that movie, and his label most likely made him put it on the album after seeing how big of a success it was, I would argue that this still fits well into the album's story. TheWeeknd is very uncharacteristically in love with this girl on this track, and it couldn't be more appropriate coming off of Shameless. He's finally admitting to himself and this girl that he has real feelings for once in his life. Even on the next track, In the Night, continues to show how much of a deep connection he's gaining with this woman. On this track, Abel talks about how they were both able to connect through their past traumas, as she was unfortunately a survivor of sexual abuse. A great song, but very, very sad in context. But then, TheWeeknd is forced to face the music on As You Are. On this track, he continuously pleads to her that even though their relationship might not be the healthiest, especially given the foundation that it was built on, again, he will take her as she is, ending the track asking her if she would do the same, but leaving us with no response from her, making her answer pretty clear, leading well into Dark Times with Ed Sheeran. On this track, Abel has hit another rock bottom, and he too reflects on what led them there, saying that only their mother could love them during their dark times. Despite the beginning of the album making it seem like he's moved on, his reckless past is a ghost that has been haunting him his entire adult life. When he has been given the choice to grow from his past or engage in that same reckless behavior on a much larger scale, he unfortunately always chose the latter and ended up back at square one, and that is especially apparent on this song. On the penultimate track, Prisoner, with future longtime collaborator Lana Del Rey, Abel finally admits to himself that he has a problem and why he always comes back to his recklessness, admitting, just like Valerie did on the end of Echoes of Silence, that he as well liked the thrill. The album finally ends on the track Angel, with an unaccredited appearance from American singer-songwriter Maddie Noise. On this track, Abel admits to this girl once more that he truly felt something for her, and that she lit up his life, but ultimately accepts that their relationship could not be viable, realizing that he needs to improve himself and ultimately breaks things off with her, sincerely wishing her the best, ending Beauty Behind the Madness with a bittersweet closer. This project was something else, man, truly. I have heard all of TheWeeknd's discography before, but coming back to re-listen for this video was a trip. Hearing all the major songs that I grew up with once again was a nice feeling. And a bit funny in retrospect, realizing that my ass should not have been singing and dancing to these songs when I was in middle school. I'm quite surprised at the lukewarm, generally positive reception this project got from critics. Like, the album isn't perfect, but it is incredibly solid. I mean, hey, like, hot take incoming, I don't even think Dark Times with Ed Sheeran was that bad of a song. Yes, I get it. An Ed Sheeran feature in the 2010s was like an easy infinite money glitch and maybe felt out of place on a Weeknd project, but I still think that the song works really well here. Abel was able to come back from a poorly received project to becoming a fully fledged pop star in just 2 years. He once again knocked it out of the park. The Beauty Behind the Madness era was iconic. Even past the already huge success that this project had and the successful Madness tour of 2015, some of his most iconic features would come from this time as well. Some of my personal highlights are Pray for Love from Travis Scott's Rodeo, the track Low Life with Future and Metro Boomin, probably one of the greatest trios possible in music. Abel and Future are just two toxic ass niggas, so that was a match made in heaven, really. And even, fun fact, the chorus is a callback to Gone from Thursday. And my personal favorite of this era, FML from The Life of Pablo, for quite obvious reasons, but I'll still expand upon them later in the video. And you think that he stopped there, but nope, because in March of 2016, Abel hinted that a new album was in the works, considering it the next chapter in his music. As the months followed, Abel would feed tidbits of info of what was to come, telling us that he started working with the same producers who helped him out on House of Balloons, except for Jeremy Rose, as the two had a falling out over the ownership of the tracks on that project, and even being linked with French electronic duo Daft Punk. Rest in peace. We wouldn't get any real word until August, when Abel teased a Daft Punk collaboration of some sort before wiping his Insta and posting some really cryptic tweets. Then, on April 21st, he would announce his newest album with the release of his title track, featuring Daft Punk. And even though I will discuss the song itself a bit more in detail later, we gotta talk about how big this moment was. The single cover, which is just the album cover with more text, showed Abel with his iconic hair fully cut off. This alone made headlines. And those headlines would continue when just a week later, Abel would drop the now unforgettable music video, where he is seen quite literally killing his older self, hair and all, and revealing his new look to the world, destroying all the awards and accolades from his past, making it very clear that TheWeeknd, or TheWeeknd as we knew him, was dead. And again, that was a major fucking statement. Just a day later, he released the single False Alarm, and just 2 months later released the final two singles, Party Monster and I Feel It Coming. And this was set to be another major release, especially with the feature list. I mean, Kendrick the GOAT coming off of one of the greatest rap albums of all time, period. Lana, another GOAT, coming off of a banger junior album. And the king of misogyny coming off of literally the most iconic releases of his career. And the only two French people I actually like. This was gonna be something. And finally, a week later, on November 25th, 2016, we would get Abel's last album before we get to our finale trilogy, 2016's legendary Starboy. Starboy is a critical moment in the story of TheWeeknd. Abel is now at the top of his game, moving past these self-destructive tendencies, and is starting to slowly become a better person, opening himself up to a new flame in the process. The album's cover, shot by director and photographer Nabil Elderkin, features Abel in a dark blue tint with 3 very expensive looking rings and a niced out crucifix. One of these subplots of Beauty Behind the Madness was Abel losing his religion and finding it again towards the end of the album, with the outro track Angel having a double meaning. So, the crucifix is a very big symbol of change. But as the album starts, we see that despite Abel making a clear change in his lifestyle, some old habits die hard. With the title track Starboy with Daft Punk, TheWeeknd very boldly proclaims his success, claiming that he is indeed a motherfucking Starboy. Track 4, another classic, Reminder, again I'm probably gonna take hella editing breaks during this video, I'm not gonna lie, is like this as well, with TheWeeknd bragging about being more successful than his contemporaries, even throwing in a bar talking about how he was nominated for a Nickelodeon Kids' Choice Award for talking about a face numbing off a bag of blow, confirming once more that Can't Feel My Face was about cocaine. He also proudly proclaims that he made it to the top his way, without being a mainstream white pop singer or conforming to the masses, and also that he did go platinum off of a mixtape, which is not something many people can say. The song is well-deserved bragging, truly, but the story of the album advances more on tracks 2, 5, and 6, Party Monster, Rockin', and Secrets. On Party Monster, TheWeeknd decides to party for the first time in a minute, indulging in some substances and cycling through girls on the daily, but repeats it in a way where it seems like his daily routine is growing quite tiresome. He starts taking interest in a girl at one of these parties, but towards the end of the song becomes paranoid of her true intentions with Abel, but still remarking that he still sees something in her. Then on Rockin', which is very much kind of a H&M type beat, not saying it's bad by the way, it's just the vibe I'm getting, Abel talks about entering another friends with benefits situation, claiming that the two can just have some fun, no strings attached. But the strings come very quickly on Secrets, as it appears that Abel's relationship with this girl is getting more serious, him becoming paranoid that she's cheating on him. Just for in the next track, True Colors, to have it be revealed to him that she has been faithful to him all along, and that it was all in his head. And as she opened up to him, the two gained an even deeper connection, and Abel starts feeling a bit more comfortable to let down his guard a bit, leading well into the Stargirl interlude with Lana Del Rey. Which, by the way, another fun LxgendaryWill fact, this was the song that got me into Lana Del Rey, and I didn't even know it existed for a hot minute. Shout out Valerie if you're watching this, by the way, not the fictional one from the songs, real life Valerie. If you're somehow an hour or so into this video, thank you. On this track, Abel and his dream Stargirl are getting quite intimate. Back arch like a cat is crazy. She's getting them white woman back shots. Oh fuck. But this one feels different. Abel talking about sex and intimacy in the past was almost always a very transactional experience that he would even fake sometimes to satisfy whichever girl he was with. But as the outro states, Abel is feeling a true, deeper connection beyond sex, and it's really great to see. Despite the song only being 2 minutes, Abel and Lana cooked up another banger. From tracks 9 to 13, Abel tells different anecdotal stories about his past, like on Sidewalks with K-Dot, reflecting on his rough upbringing once again. Then, Love to Lay is a track where he reflects on what it feels like to be led on by a lover, just for him to do the exact same thing on the next song, Lonely Night. And then, track 13 is another Joji reference. But as the album winds down, the last 5 tracks are very important to the story. On Ordinary Life, he once more reflects on his reckless life of hedonism, predicting how his own potential death could happen. But it seems like he snaps out of it on the next song, Nothing Without You. Here, TheWeeknd admits to the Star Girl how much he cares for her, even interpolating the outro from FML, asking her not to stop her loving. On the next track, All I Know with Future, we see the Star Girl's potential hesitance to be with him because of he snagged her while she was in a relationship and got her hooked onto drugs. Many of the things I've said in the past hour of this video. But then we get to the album's penultimate track, the sleeper hit, Die For You. On this track, Abel for the first time in his discography, excluding Earned It, very boldly and passionately exclaims the love he has for this woman, trying to let her know that even though they're not seeing eye to eye, he would still do anything for her, even die. But then, the album ends on the upbeat closer, I Feel It Coming with Daft Punk once more. On another 80s inspired banger, Abel finally seems to convince the Star Girl to take a chance on him and explore a real relationship together, once more reassuring that he will not hurt her like he's done other women in the past. With the two consummating their relationship in the most appropriate fashion for TheWeeknd, they make love. They very passionately make love. And it's honestly a beautiful closer. Like Beauty Behind the Madness, Starboy housed many of the other classics that adolescent Will grew up with, and again, hearing them once more, even though TheWeeknd is constantly in my rotation, revisiting them in this album was fun. It was a nice trip down memory lane, I can't lie. Though I think the album is good overall, it does start to drag a little bit after Sidewalks and loses some of its steam. It felt like some of the tracks here were kind of out of place. I mean, even TheWeeknd says in retrospect, he wasn't focused on making a complete body of work with this project, and I think that's kind of where he lost me. Because it doesn't feel like a complete body of work. It very much, at some points, it feels all over the place. But still, he managed to pick it back up towards the end. Another classic. Now, Starboy solidified Abel as a pop star, and the album would take over 2017, along with his world tour that year, starting in February and ending in December. The album would also score Abel his final Grammy as of recording, and we'll get into that later. Abel had truly become a major cultural force within this time. Even past the success of his own music, Abel signed acts Belly and the first brown boy to get it popping himself, Nav, to XO in 2015 and 2016 respectively, giving his two signees iconic feature appearances on their debut XO projects, with Belly's Up For Some Days and Nav's Some Way. And Belly, fun fact, has already been a frequent collaborator of Abel's, helping him write many of his hits. I think I'm giving up on remembering the color thing because we're like 2 hours into this recording and I have forgotten once again. We're just putting the sex lights back on. And even then, his influence already went past his label. For example, he helped inspire Lil Uzi Vert's biggest hit that I mentioned in that shitty joke from earlier, XO Tour Life, as they were one of Abel's opening acts for the Starboy Tour, even featuring on the album that it would be placed on, Love Is Rage 2, for the absolute underrated banger Unfazed, ending this entire era with an appearance on TDE's Black Panther album on the song Pray For Me with K-Dot once again. But despite the upbeatness of the last year of his career so far, we would take another 180 for his next and final project before our main subjects. Abel apparently had another album that he was making in 2017 ready and done for release, but would scrap it, ultimately deciding it wasn't fit for the time of his life that he was in. I will give more context on this a bit later, as it will be important, but Abel's dating life within the past 3 years was quite turbulent. He would get into an on-again, off-again relationship with model Bella Hadid in 2015, and when they officially called it quits, at least for a little bit, Abel would date actress and singer Selena Gomez for almost 9 months, most of 2017, just for them to also call it off in September. and he would be inspired by these heartbreaks to make a 6-song EP reflecting on these past relationships. The only teasers we got would be a tweet from Travis Scott in early March of 2018, who had heard the project early, saying that Abel's newest project brought back some memories of listening to him for the first time. And Abel would share later in the month videos of him in the studio working on the supposed new project. Just to tease its proper release on the 28th, sharing a text between him and his friend and now creative director Lamar Taylor on whether or not they should drop something on Friday, announcing it for real the next day with a proper cover art and title. And on March 30th, 2018, you would get Abel's final project before the finale trilogy, his first and only official EP, 2018's My Dear Melancholy. Now, as this is Abel's shortest project and there are not that many overarching narratives or anything, as it is just Abel vulnerably discussing his relationship woes, in this case, I will just discuss each track and not really skip over anything. The cover art pays clear homage to Michael Jackson, recreating an iconic picture of MJ with half of his face hidden in the dark. The EP starts off with its biggest and most popular song, Call Out My Name. On this track in particular, Abel reflects on his relationship with Selena, saying that he supported her through very dark times, and wishes that he didn't have to feel this pain watching their relationship falter. And that great hard time was when Selena, who unfortunately suffers from lupus, was going through a particularly shitty time as her life was at risk, all around the same time that their relationship had started. She needed a kidney transplant in order to survive. And in this song, Abel hints that he was almost going to give up one of his kidneys to save her life. And it most likely didn't materialize because he might not have been a compatible donor. Fortunately, Selena's best friend, actress Francia Arezia, who I just realized plays Anna on Grownish, I don't know how I have never noticed this in my life before, would donate her kidney to Selena, and everything worked out. But Abel still moved around some of his tour dates to be by Selena's side and support her. So yeah, having to call it quits with the girl that you were willing to give up your kidney to, yeah, that would hurt. that would hurt a lot. Then on the song Try Me, Abel slowly starts reverting back into his old ways once more, trying to persuade another older lover, potentially Bella, to leave her current man and come back to him. Then, on Wasted Times, Abel continues reflecting on his relationship with Bella, being saddened and feeling that their relationship was ultimately a waste, leaving him heartbroken again, with Abel ending the song claiming that he doesn't want to wake up without her by her side. And this outro technically makes the next song on the EP Wake Up from Astroworld. Give me a second, this makes sense. As I said earlier, Abel previewed the project to Travis before its release and potentially might have been featured on it. But within that same month, one of the producers on the project, Seven Thomas, was sending both Abel and Trav beats around this time, with Abel working on My Dear Melancholy and Trav still working on Astroworld. Abel clearly worked on an early version of the song, but ultimately decided that it didn't fit the EP, and somewhere down the line, would seemingly give it to Travis, making Wake Up effectively a My Dear Melancholy throwaway. And having the two songs still flow well together despite being on two wildly different projects with wildly different sounds is pretty cool. But following Wasted Times, we get its actual next track, the sleeper hit, I Was Never There, with French DJ and electronic musician Gisafel Stein. It took me a second there. I'm sorry, that name does not sound French at all. Despite this song becoming another classic Abel slow jam, this track details how Abel is continuing to get back into his self-destructive tendencies, sleeping around, taking drugs again, and even contemplating suicide. Telling his ex-lovers in a bit of a backhanded manner that it's fine that they left him because in the end, it won't matter. God, that's sad. I mean, I kind of feel bad that it's in the sex playlist. Then Abel and Gisafel Stein team up once again for the next track, Hurt You, where Abel tells a lover that he doesn't want to hurt them, advising them once more to run away. And he continues to confirm this downward spiral with the final track, Privilege. Here, Abel lets Selena know that he is over her and will continue to get over her by indulging in drugs once again, and reminds her that they were both going through hard times during their relationship, and he will deal with their fallout in his way, saying it in a very bitter manner, almost hinting that TheWeeknd's trademark toxicity is slowly coming back, ending My Dear Melancholy on quite grim spirits. This project does bang, but when it's put into the larger story of The Weeknd, it is really just sad. On these last two projects, you see Abel start to grow out of his toxic past, wanting to become a better man, better partner, and it seems that he finally starts to succeed at that, just for it all to crumble and make him revert back to the darkness of his younger days again. Even though this is just an EP, I feel like it's another important transitional period for The Weeknd, leading very well into the next project. Almost every song on this EP is a classic. Except Try Me. I wasn't that big a fan, sorry. And this project left the door open for what was to come next for Abel's music. Now, The Weeknd's 2018 and 2019 were more or less uneventful. Abel would do a mini tour towards the end of 2018 in Asia, releasing his first greatest hits album, The Weeknd in Japan, exclusively released in Japan 2 days before the tour had started to help promote it. He would also, of course, feature twice on Astroworld on Wake Up and Skeletons with Pharrell Williams and Kevin Parker of Tame Impala, and 2019 would release another hit with Gessa Felstein. I think I've pronounced his name at least 5 different ways. Lost in the Fire, with the song facing a bit of controversy for Abel singing a line about fucking a girl straight, which I might get flack for this. In all honesty, looking at his discography isn't the worst thing he could have said, but I also do see why, in current year, probably not the greatest thing to say, and I see why women in the gay community did not like this. He also allegedly threw some shots at Drizzy, with one of the more famous lines talking about how he wants to have a baby with the right girl, because he can never be the one to hide one. This is most likely a Drake shot, as the previous year, Drake would enter his infamous beef with Pusha T, where Push would reveal that Drake was hiding a child that he had with a former adult film actress, Sophie Brasseur. Abel would also get back with Bella during this time, picking back up from May of 2018, maybe she was touched by My Dear Melancholy, who knows, up until August of 2019, where the two ended things for good. But in short, or as short as I could be, that's where The Weeknd's story was before our main 3 projects. And so far, The Weeknd's story has just been one of never-ending tragedy. A promising musician pulled back to some of the darkest times in his life on multiple occasions due to his own poor decisions, and when finally starting to find some semblance of peace, loses it once more. And honestly, couldn't have been a better way to open this trilogy. Yeah, but before we get there, I have to admit, I lied to you guys. Things did not go very well at the courthouse, and I need to hide. I need to hide very quickly from the police. Give me just one second. Okay, alright. There is a 12-hour cut between those 2 clips. The cops left. Good now. Now we can finally discuss the last 3 albums in a bit more detail. And we'll start, of course, with the After Hours era. To contextualize this era, we do need a bit of an understanding of Abel's dating life. And admittedly, this feels quite invasive, not gonna lie, but it will help to put names to the story. Abel's supposed dating history, like many other celebrities, is clouded in rumors and mystique, as of course, most people aim to keep these things private. But Abel has been linked with many different women over the years, ranging from model and DJ Chantel Jeffries, model Giovanna Ventura, model and DJ Simi Kadra. It's a lot of models, man. He clearly has a type. And even actress Angelina Jolie. But most of these rumored relationships and or flings are almost always brought to the public's attention because paparazzi saw Abel hold hands with them one time in public, or exchange a hug, or just stand next to a woman, because clearly that means that the two of them are dating. I wish that's how it worked, but the 2 most substantially confirmed relationships Abel has been in were with Bella and Selena. Bella first got to know Abel when his team would ask her to model for the Beauty Behind the Madness artwork, but she ultimately declined the offer, though the 2 would still keep in touch. Bella has started taking a bigger liking to him at 2015's Coachella, with the 2 of them spotted being a bit lovey-dovey, officially marking when their relationship met the public eye. She would even appear in the In the Night music video, only for them to then take a short break during the holidays, according to E. But then, coming back together again when they would attend the 2016 Grammys, where Abel would win his awards for Beauty Behind the Madness and earned it. These 2 were the it couple in 2016, even rivaling Kim Ye. Rest in peace. The 2 would be together in 2015, until they split for the first time around November of 2016, the same month Starboy dropped, allegedly due to scheduling conflicts. Just a month later, Abel would perform at the Victoria's Secret fashion show, and the two would briefly share a small moment on stage, the two sharing passing flirty glances at each other, before Bella would go back to immediately serving cum. And then of course, Abel would start dating Selena for the majority of 2017, the two even attending the 2017 Met Gala together. This would be the same year that Selena would undergo her kidney transplant in September, with Abel moving around the Starboy tour to be by her side. But the two would split just a month later in October, this of course leading to the release of My Dear Melancholy. Between the time that Abel and Bella weren't together, she would allegedly be linked to Drake of all people. But as far as we know, this is more or less just a rumored fling. But this would still drive a bit of underground tension between Drake and Abel, as the two were already throwing little shots at each other on tracks like Summer 16 and Sidewalks. And like I also broke down in the last video, the song Finesse from Scorpion would hint at the fact that Drake did in fact try to pursue her at one point. Now, Abel and Bella's relationship was far from perfect, and when we get to the proper album, you'll see why. The first not great part that at least the public was able to see was that Abel started dating her when she was 18 going on 19, when he was 25. This is perfectly legal, but questionable at the very least. Not off to a good start. But the biggest points of contention was their initial split. When they split and Abel started dating Selena, rumors circulated that Bella wasn't too happy about the fact that Abel had moved on so quickly. I mean, who wouldn't be really? 2 months apart and already dating somebody. Kinda crazy. According to Bella and other insider sources, the two did maintain a cordial friendship throughout 2017, officially catching up towards the end of the year after Selena and him had broken off, and then of course being spotted together again after the release of My Dear Melancholy. Then the two would ultimately call it quits in August of 2019, citing work as the reason they broke up, with Bella busy with modeling and Abel working on his next album. Now, from the public view, outside of the Selena stuff, celebrity gossip, blind items about Bella's mom being racist, celebrity blind items are so interesting. True, you could just make something up, really. And almost every one of these celebrity gossip pages will eat that shit up. And of course, the age gap. Again, from the public's perspective, the two had a decently healthy relationship, but Abel would admit to some major shortcomings in his upcoming project. He would officially start the rollout for this new album on November 27, 2019, tweeting, "Tonight we start a brain-melting psychotic chapter. Let's go." Followed with the first single released, Heartless. Just 2 days later, we would get the second single and what would go on to be Abel's biggest song ever, Blinding Lights. 3 months later, on February 13th, he would go on to post the album teaser trailer, revealing the album's title and the cover art 5 days later, on the 18th. And on the 19th, would release the title track as the third and final single. This single getting a short film on March 4th, with album snippets featured throughout. But finally, on Friday, March 20th, 2020, we would get the first, and my favorite, part of this finale trilogy, 2020's legendary After Hours. Now, before diving into this project, we need a better understanding of how this trilogy's story is framed. The trilogy that I'll be referring to from this point forward as the After Hours Till Dawn trilogy is Abel's take on the epic narrative poem, The Divine Comedy, by Italian author Dante Alighieri. The original story is split into 3 distinct poems that link up for this overarching narrative. The story follows Dante's epic journey to meet God, but before meeting him, he must travel through 3 places. In Book 1, the Inferno, or Hell, then to Book 2, Purgatorio, or Purgatory, and finally, in the 3rd one, reaching Paradiso, or Heaven, and finally meeting God. For the After Hours trilogy, the obvious connections are that After Hours represents Hell, Dawn FM represents Purgatory, and Hurry Up Tomorrow will represent Heaven. What is also worth noting here is that the Divine Comedy is not just a large religious allegory. It also featured quite scathing political commentary for the time, criticizing the nepotism present in the Catholic Church and the Italian government. In real life, Dante was very opposed to the Italian politics at the time, and was even exiled for protesting against them in 1302. He wrote the poem for 13 years, from 1308 to 1321, publishing it shortly before his death the same year. This poem also features a love story. Dante writes about his love from afar, a muse for many of his works, a woman named Beatrice Portinari, who Dante fell in love with when they were children, the two never marrying, unfortunately, for Dante. Beatrice helps lead Dante to heaven towards the end of the story. The themes of love and religion are very active parts of the story that Abel wants to tell in this trilogy, and as we progress, you will see how often these two stories do link. In part 1, Inferno, Dante must journey through the 9 circles of hell as punishment for his various sins. And as this project continues, we will see that Abel is forced to navigate through his own personal hell. This is reflected in the color scheme and look of the cover, shot and designed by Finnish creative director Anton Tammi. We see Abel with a face covered in blood, smiling creepily at the camera, rocking 2 diamond earrings and the iconic red suit. Red is a color commonly associated with hell or sin, and it appears that Abel is reveling in that sin, while being in clear pain. The title has many different meanings, but the main one that Abel himself revealed was that many of the emotions and thoughts that he expresses on this project came to him when he was thinking late in the night, or in the after hours. This album title also does share a name with an 80s horror movie, once more reaffirming Abel's great love for cinema. This is Abel's first project since House of Balloons to be featureless, a clear choice to parallel the 2 trilogies, and we will see many parallels between these trilogies as we move on. Sorry, I had to hide my jewelry from the police, because technically the place I borrowed it from aren't too happy that it's gone. The album starts on the amazing opener, Alone Again. On this track, Abel immediately starts the trilogy's main narrative with just the first 4 lines. Take off my disguise. I'm living someone else's life, suppressing who I was inside, so I throw 2001s in the sky. Here, Abel is immediately telling us that wearing the mask of TheWeeknd for almost 10 years now has been tiring, and Abel wants to fully be himself again. The lyrics also suggest here that he is going through a rough breakup, and considering that this was recorded from 2018 to 2020, this is most likely about Bella. He also mentions Vegas as his place of serenity. This also confirms that we are looking at Abel's version of hell, as looking back in his discography, you can see very often he claims Las Vegas to be his version of hell, i.e. Heaven or Las Vegas from Thursday. But despite that, still being drawn into it. Las Vegas is very commonly referred to as Sin City. Can't say that phrase without thinking this, as it is known for its infamous nightlife, filled with all the self-destroying vices that one could dream of, like of course prostitution, drugs, and gambling. Despite this being his hell, he revels in it and lets the darker parts of this city consume him. And as the trilogy progresses, we also see that LA is looped in as one of his own personal hells. On this track, he talks about how he fears his coming loneliness following his breakup, as we all know at this point, will lead him down a path of self-destruction at almost every turn. The next 2 tracks, Too Late and Hardest to Love, follow Abel taking responsibility for the fall of this relationship. Now, on the absolute banger that is Too Late, as the title suggests, Abel wants to desperately fix things with Bella, but is too late. He also hints on Too Late a belief that either LA or Las Vegas is not a healthy place for him to live. He believes that his celebrity is also harming his relationship, with him mentioning how invasive and harmful the paparazzi are to his relationship and mental health. Then on Hardest to Love, which I don't know why this beat is low-key giving Geometry Dash, I'm sorry. That was when I first heard this album when it came out, that was my initial thought, and I still feel it today. I'm sorry. I love it though. Abel reveals that the both of them didn't want this relationship to end, but he was aware that the end was coming, as they weren't in a great spot for a while, with the both of them feeling alone while being together. Abel might also be admitting to a bit of unfaithfulness on his part, and that will be expanded upon later in the album. Following those 2 tracks, we get Scared to Live. In this song, despite Abel's clear heartbreak over Bella, he encourages her to go out and find someone new, acknowledging how Abel trying to mend a failing relationship only grew a larger strain between the 2 of them. Following in Abel's journey to move on, we then get the tracks Snow Child and Escape from LA. On both songs, leaving is a very common theme. On Snow Child, Abel beautifully reflects on his troubled youth once again, and how he was always determined to make this music thing work. He was so set on this career path that he believed he would have killed himself otherwise. He then compares those hardships from the past to his life now. And while things are objectively much better, there's still aspects of his life nowadays he isn't a fan of. Like for example, the paparazzi, having a home he's never been able to really live in, and fans and outsiders constantly trying to dig into his personal life. And I'm kind of doing that in this video, I'm sorry Abel. He admits that, of course, Cali was the initial mission, this being a callback to the morning from House of Balloons, but now he's ready to leave, leading well into the next track, the incredibly dark Escape from LA. On this song, that also shares a name with the 90s apocalypse film, Abel further discusses how much he is growing a distaste for LA. he's starting to encounter these same issues of fake groupies from Trilogy and just the general fakeness of Californian and Hollywood culture. Which again, many of the artists I've discussed on this channel before have made multiple songs talking about how much LA sucks. He briefly mentioned the diamond cross from the Starboy cover, hinting at the small semblance of religion that's in his current life. Abel recounts that LA will be the end of him as he desperately wants to get out, but unfortunately succumbing to his urges again. This song ends with a dramatic conclusion as Abel reveals the infidelity that led to the end of their relationship. Him having sex with a girl in the studio, saying that LA girls all look the same, making it seem like he couldn't even tell if he was cheating on her or not. And good God, that's fucked up. And I also hope the engineer wasn't present for any of that. Can you imagine? You know, Abel, I can leave. You know that, right? You don't have to do. Why are you helicoptering it? As Abel continues indulging in his vices, we then get the album's first single, the Metro Boomin produced classic, Heartless. Here, Abel continues to feed into his self-destructive urges. He has become fully heartless, with the chorus making callbacks to Gone from Thursday and Low Life with Future. Abel claims that he is above most women as he continues to indulge himself. He's had so much success, why would he need a bitch? Bitches need him. He still backtracks on this sentiment in the bridge by showing a bit of regret in how he and Bella's relationship ended, just to go back to claiming that he's heartless before the song ends. This track is followed by arguably the most important and underrated song in the entire trilogy, Faith. Abel starts off the track continuing to indulge himself, but comes to a realization that he has completely lost his religion. In the chorus, he acknowledges that when he's coming down from his highs, he starts to feel very lonely. But unlike coming down from House of Balloons, he has no one to turn to when he feels that way, so he continues to slowly destroy himself. He even says he tried working on himself, being sober for an apparent year, but now that he and Bella had broken up, he's entering his old ways. And while acknowledging how sad all of this is, he doesn't want any sympathy. In a more fast-paced second verse, most likely emulating a high, he says that if he ODs, he wants Bella to comfort him while he dies, showing that he has clearly not fully moved on. He then prays that this downward spiral doesn't end up hurting the ones he loved, as he seems to accept some kind of death, starting to end the track by overdosing. The outro, however, shows us that Abel did overdose, but survived, being escorted to the hospital, with the lights blinding him. And I've got to say, this song is so incredibly tragic when putting TheWeeknd's discography into perspective so far. After getting out of the tough situation that he was in, he would then reach one of the lowest of low points on Beauty Behind the Madness, losing love and his religion, and would then find his religion again and love again towards the end of Starboy, and then would temporarily lose it during My Dear Melancholy, but would then gain it all back just to lose it again. He's almost fully accepting that he will just keep driving until he crashes, and that's so unbelievably heartbreaking. We then get to track 9, TheWeeknd's biggest song to date, sitting at over 4 billion views on Spotify as of recording, the 80s inspired classic, Blinding Lights. Now, as we have all heard the song at this point, and I mean all, literally the streaming numbers is half of the world's population. In this song, Abel recognizes that he's been blinded by the lights of Las Vegas, or LA. The lights, of course, being his vices and sins, and he wants to make it up to Bella, starting to see the error of his ways. It's quite straightforward. Still a classic though. We then continue our 80s sounding songs with the next track, In Your Eyes. On In Your Eyes, he continues to recognize that she put up a facade for Abel to try and keep their relationship going, instead of ending it or addressing what problems they had. The issue probably being the shitty things that he was doing. The two stayed together while being increasingly unhappy. Abel continues reflecting on his relationship with the next track and another bona fide classic and sleeper hit, Save Your Tears. The original story of this song can actually be corroborated with a real-life event captured by the paparazzi. Many lines hint that this song is about Bella directly. Now, in real life, Weeknd reference, Abel saw Bella at the club a bit after their final breakup, bringing back strong feelings for the both of them. Bella would allegedly dip right after seeing him, clearly leaving a bit more distraught than when she came in, and having, 15,000 paparazzi people shine bright lights in her face asking questions. On this track, Abel tells us his perspective to the story from that night and tells Bella that he doesn't want her to cry because he wants her to come back into his life, as he once more promises not to hurt her again. But as the album starts drawing towards its conclusion, it's clear that she doesn't reciprocate those feelings. We then get the brief and incredibly underrated intermission, Repeat After Me interlude. Here, Abel enters a bit of denial, he just like me for real, as Bella has apparently found a new man already. The real life connotation potentially being Drake, and Abel is not so happy about that. He keeps trying to convince her, more himself really, that she still loves him and that she shouldn't fuck this new dude out of spite towards him. Here, Abel appears to get a small taste of his own medicine, now experiencing a microcosm of what Valerie went through during the trilogy. And this Valerie thing comes back later too. He does everything in his power to make her stick around, but unfortunately, it's to no avail, leading to the album's third and final single, the amazing title track, After Hours. In the penultimate song on the album, Abel is essentially begging on his knees at this point. Now, I broke down this song also in the last video, and I will be taking some clips from that commentary and adding on to it, as it relates to this album. The song starts off with Abel waking up from a nightmare, and his first reflex is to call his lover, and telling her that she needs to be around him and that she keeps him stable, saying that he can't even sleep without her. He tells her that his heart is fully hers, even saying that she wants to have kids with her, and saying that they won't need protection the next time they share a night, and without her, he's crumbling. In the second verse, he goes on to say that their departure has made him feel lonelier than ever. He doesn't even see a reason to get out of the bed in the morning without her by his side, and that's when we get that iconic chorus. In the third verse, Abel, almost begging on his knees at this point, starts acknowledging his shortcomings. He feels incredibly guilty for chasing worthless fantasies when his biggest one was right in front of him. But towards the end of this song, he fully recognizes where he went wrong in their relationship, even willing to admit that some of his preceding relationships were just to spite her, like potentially his short-lived romance with Selena Gomez, where he was spotted not only kissing Selena 3 months after they broke up, but was also seen coming out of Bella's place 2 weeks after Selena and TheWeeknd had publicly split, saying that his house isn't a home without her. You can see that Abel is admitting to some hypocrisy here, revealing that he stayed with Selena in a way to spite Bella following their first breakup, despite Abel asking her not to do that exact thing on Repeat After Me. This song is really his final plea to Bella to work things out. It is clear that he sees a real future with her, and is now starting to realize how badly he fucked up. Abel is very open about his self-sabotage and is willing to admit his shortcomings because he wants every chance possible to fix things with Bella, as he believes that life itself is pointless without her. He sees a real future with her. And I will discuss this more later, but there is a reason why this is one of my favorite Weeknd songs of all time. I said this in the last video, and I don't want to repeat myself, but this song shows so much clear maturity from his older days. It's amazing, with Abel admitting so very boldly and publicly that he fucked up. Hell, if this album ended up just being the last Weeknd album, I'd be fine with that, because it would end the story in such a beautiful yet horrifically tragic way. And speaking of tragedy, that's when we get to the album's closer track. Now, in this song, the message is clear. Abel has given up. While potentially being high on some kind of substance, he's terrified of something. This most likely being his own death, as he appears to be ODing again. He is truly approaching the end of his rope. Every day without Bella is agony, and there are no drugs left on the planet that are strong enough to help him forget or move on. So he wishes to cut her out of his dreams. This song can be interpreted as both a literal and metaphorical suicide, just like The Birds Part 2, as TheWeeknd ends the song bleeding out, marking the beginning of TheWeeknd's death in some capacity, and of course leading into the next project. Though I still won't cover the music videos in this video, it's worth pointing out that even the music video for this track makes clear references to his past hedonism and not so subtle references to House of Balloons. And just like Valerie is starting to experience the extreme despair in what is meant to be his happy place, with the album closing with Abel fading into darkness and dying, ending After Hours in the most tragic manner. This album, man, holy hell. it's probably the most tragic in his discography. And I mean, After Hours was the project that made me a Weeknd fan in the first place. And it hits even harder now doing this whole retrospective. This man is the GOAT. I know we're not done yet, and I'm trying to save the glazing for later towards the end, but he's the GOAT. But in terms of the overarching story, this perfectly plays into the themes of the Divine Trilogy, as After Hours tells the tale of Abel trying to escape the Weeknd's version of hell, but in his case, ultimately failing, but still leading himself to purgatory. This man cooked one of the greatest albums I've ever heard, and even 5 years after its release, it still hits like a motherfucker. But I will save the glazing for the end. After Hours was obviously a huge success, though Abel would have to postpone his planned tour that year due to the flood invasion of 2020. I can't say the C word. Blinding Lights was the song of 2020, breaking multiple Billboard records, once more solidifying Abel's GOAT status. He would perform the song along with many of his other hits at the 2021 Super Bowl, inspiring that iconic meme of him running through that golden hall, releasing his second greatest hits compilation to accompany his performance. This one being released worldwide. Weeknd fans were eating good around this time. In 2020, Abel would also finally release King of the Fall to streaming, and during his promo tour for After Hours, would perform and star in some sketches on Saturday Night Live, and even be a guest star on American Dad, even being a co-writer on the episode, and releasing the only Weeknd song that I and most of his fans can relate to. I'm a virgin, never got close enough. And in 2021, on the 10-year anniversary of each project, Abel would re-release all the OG mixtapes from Trilogy on streaming and with special physical editions for the first time, even finally clearing the samples on What You Need and Coming Down. And the way that I found out that this happened was when suddenly I log into Spotify, play What You Need, and I see that it has a new album cover and the intro sounds different. Abel clearly did a lot of fan service around this time while gearing up to release his next project. The only real issue to arise around this time was the controversy Abel sparked in 2020, boycotting the Grammys. Quite surprisingly, The Weeknd got no nominations for After Hours, despite objectively having the biggest song of that year and one of the most successful and critically acclaimed projects in his discography. He complained about how outdated the Grammy committee was and refused to attend the ceremony for the next few years. But back to the albums. In an interview with Variety in May of 2021, Abel would say, quote, "If the last record is the After Hours of the night, then The Dawn is coming." This new album, with the speculative title of The Dawn, would get its first teasers in August later that year, with Abel releasing a video titled The Dawn is Coming, following it up 4 days later with the album's lead and only single, Take My Breath. We wouldn't get much word up until the month of release, January 2022, where on New Year's Day, Abel would tease the potential of a surprise release, sharing a text with Lamar Taylor again, teasing the project the same way he did for My Dear Melancholy. And just 2 days later, would post another album teaser revealing the album's title and release date of January 7th, just 4 days away. So then, on January 7th, 2022, we would get the semi-surprise release of Abel's 5th studio album and the second part of the After Hours Till Dawn trilogy, 2022's Dawn FM. Bringing things back to the Divine Trilogy, we have now reached part 2, Purgatorio. Dante has finally escaped hell, but must climb to the top of Mount Purgatorio in order to cleanse his sins before entering heaven. On Dawn FM, Abel has now entered Purgatory, but instead of really journeying through it, he is kind of put in a metaphorical waiting room, awaiting his fate, while listening to Purgatory's number 1 and only radio station, 103.5 Dawn FM. The album cover, shot by creative director Matilda Finn, features an aged Abel in a dark room, with a very bright light shining behind him. Abel's aged look on the cover is meant to represent that Abel had been waiting a long time in purgatory for his judgment day, and the light behind him is meant to represent the coming dawn. As I said earlier, it is clear that this album's title was definitely inspired by the finale track on Trilogy, Till Dawn, Here Comes the Sun, with that track having its own take on the dawn or a new beginning. The album starts on the thematic intro and title track, Dawn FM. The Weeknd has now entered purgatory with our new narrator, the first and only narrator present in his discography, Jim Carrey, being the host of 103.5 Don FM, a commercial-free radio station, playing music as you await your fate in purgatory. It's a good thing that the music is good. If Abel woke up from ODing and had to listen to Vultures 2 or Bully, you'd know he's still in hell. Someday I'm gonna nitrous, then I'm gonna drop Vultures 2. In the opening section, Abel admits that he is going through this journey alone, as, coming off the last project, there is no one there for him anymore. He understands the importance of this journey through purgatory and wonders what will greet him on the other side. Then we have Jim Carrey try to ease his worries by starting to play us some fun tunes, leading into the first proper song, Gasoline. In this song, TheWeeknd has found a new girl who's willing to indulge in his self-destructive tendencies, trying to find something to feel his heartbeat. TheWeeknd has entered a bender of some sorts, and lets this new girl know that if he dies, he's fine with being forgotten, as he doesn't seem to value his own life as much. He believes that there's no point in pondering the afterlife, and just plans to keep living until it's over, or at least until it all fades to black. Very, very subtle foreshadowing, as the two enter some kind of situationship. The song has such upbeat production for quite a dark-ass message. But hey, this is what a lot of 80s music was like, and a lot of Abel's music is like in general, so, you know, makes sense. We then get the next track, How Do I Make You Love Me? In this song, we start to see that he is developing feelings for this new girl. Again, and for the first time in his life, feels a strangely overwhelming feeling to prove his love to this girl, begging that they can make something together. And Abel continues showing his feelings for this girl on the album's next track, the lead single, Take My Breath. The album version and single version are different, the main difference being that the album version has a longer extended intro, leading in from the end of How Do I Make You Love Me. But the best way I can describe this song's subject matter is that it's just a bit horny. Like, really horny. TheWeeknd feels a deep sexual connection with this girl and is talking about how often he loves to take her breath away while they're having sex. It wouldn't be a Weeknd album without just insane freakiness. This track leads well into Sacrifice. Here, Abel really doubled down on the whole 80s vibe from After Hours throughout this project, and it admittedly works quite well. Here, TheWeeknd is starting to do his classic backtracking. He uses this song to say that he doesn't want to settle down with her and feels that he's already making a conscious effort to please her by keeping this facade of a relationship running. He tries to tell her that he doesn't need love and is content with what they're doing. Yeah, I wonder how long that sentiment will last. We then get the interlude, A Tale by Quincy, from the legendary late Quincy Jones, the music producer behind some of the greatest songs of all time. He has worked with artists like Ray Charles and even the late Frank Sinatra, but most notably working with the late Michael Jackson. At his peak, on this interlude, Quincy simply reflects on his rough upbringing and how that influenced a rather cynical view of love that he believes hurt many of his past relationships. This being a tale that is all too familiar to TheWeeknd at this point, making it quite an important interlude on this project, and the trilogy in general, leading well into our next track on the album, Out of Time, the song that most of you know because the music video features the pretty lady from Squid Games. In this song, sampling the 1983 song Midnight Pretenders by Japanese artist Tomo Aran, TheWeeknd reflects on a different relationship, potentially talking about Bella again. Bella started dating art director Mark Coleman in 2020, with the two ultimately splitting in 2023, making it fully plausible that this song could be about her. Here, TheWeeknd once more accounts that he would treat her better given a second chance, even telling her that if her new man fucks up even one time to hit his line. But in the end, TheWeeknd realizes that he's too late and is out of time. This track ends with another outro from Jim Carrey, telling listeners on Don FM to not leave the radio station as their time is coming to a close soon, and all the pain from the past will just become a distant memory, even hinting at potential rebirth, but pulls us back from the existential crisis to enjoy some more fun, easy listening slow tracks on 103.5 Don FM. My inference here is that Abel and TheWeeknd are going through two entirely different journeys on this album. Abel seems to be the one mainly waiting around in purgatory, while we hear the story of TheWeeknd through the songs on 103.5. getting himself wrapped up in his current situationship. And the story of said situationship continues with our next track, Here We Go, again with Tyler the Creator. This title also low-key summarizes the song's subject matter almost immediately. TheWeeknd starts off the song celebrating his successes like the 2021 Super Bowl halftime show, but both Tyler and Abel share their growing hesitance to enter relationships due to their celebrity status. Tyler is probably the perfect feature for a track like this. As I broke down in the second part of my mini-series on Tyler the Creator's discography, he is currently leading a very free and promiscuous life. And on his past 2 albums, Call Me If You Get Lost, the one that released literally just before Dawn FM, and even 2024's Chromacopia, Ty has continuously talked about not being ready to settle down and his issues with society's views on marriage as a whole. But despite this clear hesitance to fall in love again, as the title suggests, here we go again. On the next track, Best Friends, TheWeeknd tries to tell his lover that they can continue to have fun, but that they should just remain friends. But once more, this nigga is clearly projecting. He's scared of getting his heart hurt again and believes that they should just play it safe. And he confirms that he's projecting on the next track, Is There Someone Else? In this song, Abel realizes that this girl is hiding something from him. He can see through her lies as she reminds him of himself when he was being shitty to women. He also acknowledges that his past doesn't really offer him much privilege in asking for loyalty, but is still curious of what she is hiding. He also seems to reference Prisoner from Be Behind the Madness, saying that he's moved on past those days, even though in this album it's kind of clear he's relapsed, and wants their relationship to last. This continues even more with the next track, Starry Eyes, where Abel once more pleads to this lover to give him a chance, growing a larger and larger infatuation with her, saying that he could treat her better than her ex ever did. We are then greeted by our second interlude, Every Angel is Terrifying. This track takes place during a commercial break on the commercial-free Dawn FM. Love the consistency. It's probably intentional. I'm just making a joke. TheWeeknd reads an excerpt from the Duino Elegies, a series of poems written by the late Rainer Maria Rilke, an Austrian poet and novelist. This excerpt TheWeeknd reads could most likely show us listeners that Abel, still in purgatory, is scared of what is on the other side, believing that even encountering angels, a known symbol of beauty and purity, would be a terrifying experience for any human, let alone him, a man plagued with the many sins of his past. We then cut to a near comedic commercial with TheWeeknd advertising a movie called Afterlife, clearly emulating those invasive infomercials from the 80s, 90s, and early 2000s. I don't know why I got slap chop flashbacks listening to that thing.
You're gonna love my nuts.
We then get back to the radio with the next song, Don't Break My Heart. Once more, the title kind of gives it away. TheWeeknd is starting to get ready to commit to this new girl and pleads that she doesn't break his heart, as he's already faced so much pain in the past in his dating life. But then, she breaks it on the next song, I Heard You're Married, with Lil Wayne. TheWeeknd realizes that he was nothing more than a fling to this girl, as he learns that she's married. As Wayne articulates for us, TheWeeknd is not satisfied being a side hoe to this girl, as he envisioned them moving forward in their relationship. He ends the track cutting it off with her, feeling both angry and sad that he wasted his time with her. TheWeeknd reference. The album starts reaching its conclusion with the final song, Less Than Zero. In this somber outro, Abel reflects on his dating past once again. It's unclear which partners he's referring to on this song, but TheWeeknd spends this track admitting to a previous lover that he kind of sucked, that he kind of sucked in the past. And at this point, is coming to accept whatever fate awaits him, leading well into the album's outro skit, Phantom Regret by Jim Carrey. In this spoken word poem written by Jim himself, he shares his views on what could lead one to heaven. You see, regret is the largest motif of this poem and has been a large one in TheWeeknd's entire discography. Jim talks about how now that you are waiting on your fate in the afterlife, whether you're going up or down, many things in your past life have become frivolous, and as you await your fate, you have to let go of the past in order to go in peace, still acknowledging your past mistakes, but not holding on to him. Or, as he said, you gotta be heaven to see heaven. For Abel, it appears that he has many regrets. This trilogy so far has mirrored so many elements of the original. Throughout the story told on Dawn FM, you see that Abel has kind of become Valerie, in the second part of the trilogy no less. He gets found in a dark place in his life by a prospective lover, being led to believe that there is a future for the two of them, just to find out that he was only used for her gratification. Now, yes, of course, in this case, the lover isn't, incredibly forthcoming on the fact that that she kind of sucks and that she's cheating on her husband with him. And thanks to Abel's past of being a not so great partner, he was able to see the signs and dip, unlike Valerie, but he's now experienced some of the pain he put Valerie through firsthand and can see that playing with someone who is in a very dark mental space isn't very fun. He now sees the way that he's mistreated other women in his life through a different lens and understands how badly he really screwed up and what led him here in the first place. Getting ready to accept the end with open arms. Ending Dawn FM with the sound of nature and birds chirping in this hopeful sounding closer, foreshadowing that the next part of his journey could very much be his happy ending. Now, for this project, I will be upfront and say that I was not expecting to get teary-eyed, honestly. With Abel starting to ponder mortality and the afterlife, I don't know why, but it hit me. I will also say, though, just like Thursday, it's the weakest point of the trilogy. I'm sorry. And I'm not the only one who thinks so. The album is the weakest performer in this trilogy, only hitting number 2 on Billboard. The first time he's done that since Kissland. And speaking of Kissland, Abel said that it was the album that inspired the very creation of this project, enabling and empowering Abel to take risks again. And he definitely took one. This album is a lot more conceptual than any of his work in the past, and he fully dedicated himself to recreating that 80s sound for this entire project. And don't get me wrong, the songs sound great, but I also see why this turns some people off, as it does tend to drag sometimes. But given the fact that this album is like his modernized take on Kissland, it's also no wonder why it's written also as another transitional period. It's his shortest album to date, and it felt like there was a bit less to break down than for After Hours, because this was, again, a transitional period. But when it comes to the story, the thematic elements are played up pretty well, and he did a good job there. And maybe I'm grasping at straws, but I feel like the main Weeknd plot of the situationship is a pretty good allegory for purgatory. Being in a friends with benefits arrangement or situationship is filled with a great amount of uncertainty about your final fate with this person, even though you willingly put yourself into this kind of emotional purgatory. I'm assuming that you people who do this are masochists. Get help. Everything going on during these past 5 years has been quite interesting. Of course, following Dawn FM, he would finally start the After Hours tour, now named the After Hours Till Dawn tour, in July of that year, and then would go on to make The Idol and its subsequent soundtrack. That was pretty good, admittedly. And then, of course, reached the peak of his career when he became the guy from Fortnite. And I'm proud to say I own the popular emote, mainly because it's the only thing I could afford. But 2 major things worth mentioning happened around this time. One, Abel revealing 3 days after the album's release that we are now experiencing a new trilogy. If these niggas are starting construction outside of my house, And 2, the SoFi incident. On September 3rd, 2022, during his second show in SoFi Stadium in California during the tour, Abel lost his voice in the middle of performing his first song. He would go off stage for a moment and later announce to the crowd that he had lost his voice and couldn't continue the show, promising to reschedule it and give everyone refunds.
I don't know what just happened when I screamed, but I just lost my voice. This is killing me. I don't want to stop the show. But I can't give you the concert that I want to give you right now. I'm gonna make sure everybody's good, get your money back, but I'll do a show real soon for you guys. But I wanted to come out and personally apologize and not tweet it or Instagram it or whatever. I want you guys to know that I can't give you what I want to give you right now. I apologize. I'm so sorry. I love you guys so much. You know how much this kills me right now. I'm sorry. I love you. Thank you so much.
And we wouldn't know until a bit while later, but this marked a major turning point for Abel as a person. At that very moment, he realized how hard he had been pushing himself. He was on tour, he was working on new music, he was apparently going in and out of LA to shoot The Idol, which, small side tangent, could contribute to why some of the writing was questionable, because according to the Wikipedia, there was a lot of improvisation. And I'm no actor, but what I will say is improvisation is really hard if you do not have the knack for it. So for that to be a major part of the writing, yeah, not the greatest. And when he would finally come on stage to perform, he failed. For a moment, Abel thought that his career was fully over. Like, not to reduce him to just his voice, but that's his moneymaker. If that was gone, he is kind of cooked. Thankfully, Abel would give his voice a rest and would come back a week later and continue to perform, but this really made him reflect on his life. He apparently had a decent part of the album done, but decided to rework it. While to us it doesn't seem like that big a deal, it makes sense why this event shook Abel so much. He has said himself that he's performed through worse conditions, like being sick or losing a family member, but to lose his voice in front of the entire world must have been beyond nerve-wracking. Before this incident, Abel really didn't say anything that would even hint at this trilogy being the last one, but it seems like this is what pushed him to make the ultimate decision to pull the plug on TheWeeknd. Abel would start his last few round of features as TheWeeknd, announcing in a May 2023 interview with W Magazine, saying that this coming project would indeed be his last as TheWeeknd, saying that he will still make music, maybe as Abel, maybe as TheWeeknd, but wants to kill off this character once and for all. Also vowing to never do another feature unless Daft Punk, who had officially amicably split in 2021, would reunite. And given the fact that as of recording this very video, that shit has not happened, much as I'd love for it to, it seems like Abel would end TheWeeknd's final feature run on Travis Scott's Utopia, with the track K-Pop, its lead single, and the song Circus Maximus. Heavily underrated in my opinion. But would officially end this supposed feature run on that aforementioned Diddy song. Oh, good lord. But we would then learn that he joined among the ranks of the world's greatest liars in R&B and hip-hop, as he would be featured on Future and Metro Boomin's We Don't Trust You duology. The other notable escapades that have gone on within the past 5 years were his famous remixes and re-releases, and the announcement of the companion movie for this upcoming album. I already touched on the mixtape re-releases, but I didn't talk about the others. Following the success of the After Hours album, Abel would release a lot of remixes of songs from the project, with an In Your Eyes remix with Doja Cat, and more famously, Abel and Ariana Grande's Save Your Tears remix. The two have worked previously before, and almost every song they've made has gone crazy. The two kind of realized that a collaboration between the two of them was an infinite cash glitch, working 100% 2027. And she would return in 2023 for a Die For You remix, accompanied by a Starboy Deluxe album featuring their remix and another 2 remixes from the Starboy album that initially released back in 2016 and 17. I imagine that the conversation just went like this. Abel just hit Ari up and was like, hey, I really want to buy a yacht. Can you do a feature with me, please? And when it comes to the movie, though its details are a bit obscured because like confidentiality, NDAs, all of that legal stuff. Filming had already started in 2023, but the story was worked around and then pushed back, likely due to the SoFi incident. But to get back to the trilogy, after 2 years of uncertainty with this album's release, Abel would finally start the proper rollout in 2024. The first major teaser we would get would be an Instagram post where Abel compiled the past 2 album covers and ends with the supposed third cover, with just a question mark and the parental advisory sticker. Then, a couple months after that, Abel would announce the album's title with a teaser video, and 3 days later would reveal the original album cover for this new project, and announce a special one-night concert in Sao Paulo, Brazil, for September 7th, 2024. This performance only including songs from this trilogy and 9 unreleased tracks, with appearances from Anitta and Playboi Carti, performing their verses on these unreleased songs. We would then get the lead single, Timeless, with Carti on September 27th, and the final single, Sao Paulo, with Anitta on October 30th. The song Dancing in the Flames was meant to be the album's original lead single, releasing on the 17th of September, but didn't end up making the final product. Abel would properly announce the album's original release date on November 27th, the exact day that he announced the After Hours Era and dropped the Heartless single, set for initially a January 24th, 2025 release. He also announced another one-off show at the Hollywood Rose Bowl the day of the album's release. But the concert was unfortunately cancelled and the album was pushed back a week due to the ongoing wildfires in California that had started earlier that month. Abel started focusing more on wildfire aid than the rollout on social media, and even announced that proceeds from the upcoming album track, Take Me Back to LA, which we will touch on in a second, would have all of its profits donated to wildfire relief. But finally, after 3 years of waiting and just a general 5 years of when this trilogy began, on January 31st, 2025, Abel would drop the last part of this trilogy and what is now his final album as TheWeeknd. The epic conclusion to the saga, 2025's Hurry Up Tomorrow. Here, we have now entered part 3, Paradiso. Back in the original Divine Comedy, Dante's love, Beatrice, leads him through the 9 celestial spheres of heaven, where he would then climb up to its highest point, Empyrean, where he would finally get the chance to meet God. But instead, on this album, it appears that Abel is now in some kind of limbo between purgatory and heaven. And in order to get to heaven, he follows Jim Carrey's advice of being heaven before seeing heaven, and uses this album to heal past wounds and make amends for his sins. The original standard cover that Abel had teased features him in a black tank top, looking toward the camera with teary eyes, with a bright light shining in his face. This symbolizing Abel meeting God and getting ready to be reborn. But the cover would change at the last minute, the older one being relegated to the first pressing edition, a special version of the album missing 12 tracks, and this one would actually be an edited still from the upcoming companion movie to this project, featuring on the side the album's title and the track list. This still represents Abel going to heaven, as Abel is once more seen with a bright light shining on him, appearing to be scared or nervous about this final leg in his journey. The album starts with the cinematic intro, Wake Me Up, with the French electronic production duo, Justice. As this song starts, we get this sense that Abel has not yet reached heaven or the afterlife. He starts the song with a very nihilistic view of his life, just like on Gasoline. He is convinced that there is no real afterlife, and when it all fades to black, all he will leave behind is his legacy, his imperfect, problematic, and admittedly toxic legacy. It could also be hinting that the afterlife that was sold to Abel back on Every Angel is Terrifying was a sham. The first instrumental for this song samples Italian composer Giorgio Moroder's main theme for the Scarface film, and Giorgio would also reappear on this album. Following this bleak introduction, we switch to a more lively beat, where he explains his current situation. He is now stuck in limbo, wondering if any days have passed, as he worries he is running out of time to make it to heaven. He begs God to wake him up from wherever he is, as he can feel himself still dying, unsure of what fate precedes him on the other side. We then get to track 2, Cry For Me. As the album progresses, we see this kind of thing happen a lot, but on this track, TheWeeknd realizes his time is coming to a close soon, and wants to make amends, taking Jim's advice. On this track in particular, he very generally touches on past relationships and apologizes for letting the toy life and other not so favorable traits of his consume him and hurt their relationship, hoping that his lovers will take pity on him. This song instrumentally leads into the skit I Can't Fucking Sing. This track serves as both an interlude and a transition, as the monologue from this track is most likely a soundbite from the upcoming Hurry Up Tomorrow movie, with Abel seeming to do a dramatized reenactment of the SoFi incident. We then get to the album's second single, Sao Paulo with Anitta. Over this admittedly very fun Brazilian funk beat, TheWeeknd and Anitta get really horny. Anitta's part is entirely in Portuguese, and even though, big old LxgendaryWill is bilingual, one of those languages is not Portuguese. But her bridge roughly translates to put it in the mouth, put it in the face, put it wherever you want. And then her refrain roughly translates to, this dude looked at me and wanted to eat my little today I will give it to the young dude. Fuck. I can't read this. Oh my god. Oh my fucking god. I can't read this. Yeah, and the Weeknd's performance doesn't get any better. The music video is even weirder somehow. But again, song's still a fun one, can't lie about that. We then get track 5, Until We're Skin and Bones, which is basically another musical transition, until we get to Baptized in Fear. In this song, we learn that The Weeknd fell asleep in a bathtub and is experiencing some kind of odd sleep paralysis. This bathtub might have been where The Weeknd initially had started dying towards the end of After Hours. And this song seems to discuss how Abel is growing more distant from the Weeknd character and doesn't want to keep living, in his eyes, a lie to appease others, carrying great shame and regret for the way he acted under this character. He is quite literally drowning in the weight of his past and struggling to see how he can move forward. Having this experience in a bathtub is very much like a metaphorical baptism. The song once more transitions into Open Hearts. Continuing on his journey of self-reflection, Abel ponders if he can ever open his heart again to love, worried that he would hurt himself once more, leading to his known never-ending cycle of self-destruction. The next track would be Opening Night, where Abel and a girl are getting into an argument over the phone before one of his shows. The lyrics seem to show us that The Weeknd's reckless tendencies are still active in his life here, unfortunately drugging himself so he can keep up and start the show. This then leads into the next track, Reflections Laughing, with Travis Scott and Florence Welch of Florence and the Machine. That's the craziest fucking matchup of the year. I was quite hyped when I heard Travis's voice on this album because, like, he finally got a place on the Weeknd album. Abel has been on every Travis album since Rodeo, and to hear him close his projects with Travis, that felt good. Travis even offering additional production on this very song. Here, Abel and Travi Patty reflect on the darker parts of fame and how it keeps them trapped. Abel being scared of drowning once again. And as teased in Opening Night, Abel is not in a good place, once more using, and his girl, played by Canadian singer Cherry22, who also happens to come from the same place as Abel and even went on tour with him, tries to call him to see what's up, worried for Abel's safety, as she's been hearing that he hasn't been doing so well. We see here that Abel desperately wants to escape his vices, but he can't. He feels like he is trapped in a cage with all of his reflections laughing at him, mocking his failure to move on. The discussion of failure continues with the next track, Enjoy the Show, with the king of misogyny himself, Future. Just like Can't Feel My Face, Abel and Future personify their drug addictions and discuss how they are hooked to them, potentially leading to their respective demise. This, in my eyes, is another example of probably the perfect feature, as Future's known struggle with substance abuse has been reflected on in his past music, most notably Codeine Crazy, another song that I made a video about. Again, guys, go watch No One Wants to Fall to Heaven. Just do it. It's only 6 hours, and this video is probably going to be like 3 when I'm done editing, but 12 hours of this face? Who could get tired of that? These two are the kings of fumbling bad bitches and turning that pain into some of the greatest music of all time. The Weeknd very sarcastically tells his supporters and or onlookers that he hopes that they mourn his death, but if not, to just sit back and enjoy the show. This show being his self-destruction. He believes that his fans derive pleasure from his pain, as he does tend to make some of his best work when he's on substances or talking about his issues with said substances, leaving him in a quite cynical mind state. This continues with the track Given Up on Me. This song, which, fun fact, was initially crafted during a beat-making tutorial that Metro Boomin had made back in 2023, this song has Abel continuing to reflect on his drug abuse. The track is split into 2 parts, and in the first one, The Weeknd admits to his audience that he has failed at getting sober again, and tells them just to let him die in peace, as he's given up on fixing himself. Then, in part 2, he attempts to crawl back to his vices, recounting how good they felt, and how they were able to relieve his pain temporarily, but makes a major 180 towards the end of the song, begging God to help him, and not give up on him like he's given up on himself, leading well into our next song, I Can't Wait to Get There. Now, the song's overall message as it relates to the main album story is about Abel growing a bit more hope for his potential coming afterlife. It appears that he is slowly allowing God back into his life, properly starting to regain his faith. The main verse of this song reflects on his success in overcoming recent struggles. He mentions that he sold the 20 mil mansion he never lived in to Madonna, and also briefly mentions trying to reconnect with his estranged father. But the biggest focus of the song and the main issue he discusses is his beef with Drizzy that he's had over the past year. As I said, the things between the two of them have been tense for like a hot minute now. They were cool for a moment. Drake had claimed that they were cool on the song War from Dark Lane demo tapes back in 2020, and the two would be spotted at Abel's birthday party in 2022, where we would get this famous clip of Abel bumping Get Busy by Yeet. But yeah, clearly they don't fuck with each other anymore. If this past year is anything to go by, it's still very evident that on top of Abel siding with, you know, the Mustard Man, Drake is also still very bitter that Abel never signed to OVO. And Abel has even mentioned this before on the song All To Myself from We Still Don't Trust You, and this track, saying that he is very grateful he never signed to Drake. Drake had initially responded to what Abel had said on Family Matters, basically calling him a junkie and a pussy, but given his current legal situations right now, I think the pussy comment is a bit ironic. But anyway, things would get even more heated, as in April 2024, when this beef was starting to reach its peak, Cash XO security guard would get shot in Cali, and in some kind of alleged retaliation, one of Drake's security guards was shot outside of his crib in Toronto a week later, both of them thankfully surviving. But in this song, Abel disavows the notion that XO had something to do with it. He also calls Drake a stupid high school dropout, which also, a little bit ironic for Abel to say, as Drake dropped out of high school at 15 to pursue his acting career. It's quite surreal that in the finale trilogy of his career, he's dissing the dude that he came up with. And I mean, I get it, but it's kind of crazy. But we then get to track 13, the album's lead single and smash hit, Timeless with Playboi Carti. And the song's subject matter is quite straightforward. He's timeless. Abel is once more in higher spirits, flexing his success and finding pride in the fact that his legendary discography will live on forever. Both Carti and Abel claiming that they've known ever since they were young that they were going to amount to big things. And they say rap music can't be inspirational. It's also worth pointing out the full circle moment of having Pharrell Williams produce this track, being one of the dudes who inspired him to make music in the first place. Legendary shit. And one last thing before we move on to the next song that I think is worth addressing, the wrist line. Is it out of pocket? Yes. Is the bar still fired? Unfortunately, also yes. The bangers continue with Niagara Falls, with incredible production from Metro Boomin. Like, this shit goes fucking nuts. Like the chorus suggests, sampling the track Nobody to Love by John B. and Babyface, Abel admits how he mistreated a past lover, reflecting once more on his upbringing and how his tough teenage years influenced his shitty behavior. And here's the thing, a part of me believes that this song could be about Valerie. It might seem like a major reach, but hear me out. I believe he makes two distinct callbacks to Trilogy on this song. One of the first lines being, I used to hold you, girl, before the sun came up. It was dusk till dawn. Being, in my eyes, a clear reference to Till Dawn, Here Comes the Sun from Trilogy. And he also later mentions in the song that this girl had a boyfriend at the time that they were seeing each other. If my theory is true, it appears that life has turned around for Valerie. Sorry, editing Will here. Upon further looking at the video, I realized I kind of misinterpreted some of the lyrics. I was originally going to say that Valerie ended up finding a new man, but that is not the case. Something worth actually mentioning is that it appears that, again, if this is Valerie, Abel's giving us some new lore, saying that the ex that she was cheating on Abel with apparently wasn't the greatest man and was her baby daddy. But still, Abel reaffirms in this song that Valerie is now doing well for herself, saying that he's always seen potential in her. If my Valerie theory is true, in this song, Abel is showing us once again that he is fully capable of admitting his faults, and is admitting to Valerie his faults when they were together, as it seems like Valerie was one of the first people that Abel started growing an emotional attachment to. This song further shows us TheWeeknd's journey of trying to fix his past mistakes before the end. The song's outro would then lead into the next track on the album, a highly anticipated song, Take Me Back to LA. The crazy thing about this track is that this was made during the After Hours sessions and has been sitting in the vault ever since, with Abel previewing an early version of this track back in 2020, the week after After Hours released, on an Instagram Live. In a clear response track to Escape from LA, Abel is finally ready to make his return to LA, wishing he could go back in time and fix some of the mistakes he made when he started his career, but understanding that all he can do is move forward. He can look at LA with a new perspective. Despite Cali being the initial mission, LA has started bringing back painful memories of the fall of his relationship with Bella. He also acknowledges that he left Toronto when he was too young. And of course, leaving a very self-destructive life of hedonism when you were poor to then being quickly thrust into celebrity life and having an even bigger opportunity to engage in hedonism now that you're rich and a celebrity, yeah, probably not the healthiest situation to be put in. He believes that now that he is single and has found God again, he feels more comfortable coming home. But then ends the song going back to being fearful of his loneliness, just like Alone Again. He almost immediately gets back into his anxiety of falling into his old habits. In the next track, Big Sleep, with a listed feature from Giorgio, sampling another theme that he had done, the theme from the Midnight Express, with Abel also apparently citing this very theme as inspiration for this project. This track returns to the overarching theme of this trilogy, where Abel is showing growing distance from the Weeknd character. And in this song, it appears that the Weeknd is getting ready to start putting himself to rest, praying for a rebirth. The rest of the album starts to wind down with the next track, Give Me Mercy. Here, the Weeknd has a literal come to Jesus moment as he reflects on the sins of his past, asking God for mercy and forgiveness for his past wrongdoings. This continues with the next song, Drive, where once more, the Weeknd continues to start accepting that the end is coming, as Abel talks about how desperately he wants to see tomorrow. He acknowledges how much his fame as The Weeknd has stunted his ability to move forward and wants to take control back into his own hands. As the chorus suggests, this very much feels like The Weeknd wants to take one last drive through LA before the inevitable happens, having his last hurrah. The song is quite emotional and mad underrated too. We then get to The Abyss with Lana Del Rey, the other song that has been sitting in the vault since After Hours, teased in that same live. In this track, Abel appears to talk to The Weeknd himself, as The Weeknd is scared to face his coming mortality. The Weeknd remarks that he doesn't like the view from halfway down. This line is in reference to the title of the penultimate episode of BoJack Horseman, the critically acclaimed Netflix series, which featured an original poem that one of the characters recites of the same name. Now, as to not spoil major aspects of the show and finale for people who haven't seen it yet, in this episode, the main character, BoJack, is forced to contemplate the very concept of mortality, or more in his case, suicide, and is also forced to confront many of his fears and regrets before the episode ends. It's probably one of the greatest episodes of television ever made, and if you haven't already, go watch the show, or at the very least, Johnny Two Cello's video. It is so worth the time. But for those of you who haven't seen the episode or don't care to watch, I'll be putting the poem up somewhere on screen, and you can pause to read. You can see how there are certain parallels between this poem and how the Weeknd is feeling about the demise of his character. Once again in the editing chair, and I felt it was important to tack this on. I feel like this BoJack reference, while also being admittedly kind of small and maybe is just like a one-liner, also highlights his character growth. Once again, I don't want to spoil the show for those of you who haven't seen it, but BoJack is known for being kind of a shitty person. And on a lot of occasions, uses his past trauma as a justification for why he's shitty to people. And it takes him a while to learn that he can't do that. One of the most iconic scenes in the show is someone telling him off for doing that exact thing. And I think, again, The Weeknd is starting to learn that here too. As much as I love the man's music, when you look back, especially in the early stuff, it's not super easy to justify some of the things that he was doing back then. This is another common criticism his music gets of just why would I want to listen to a dude who rarely takes responsibility for being a shitty person? And I understand that, but I think that in this album, and especially in this song, he's making it apparent that this is a change, that he's accepting that that's something he's done, and he's actively making a change. Again, I feel like some people might have an aversion to his music because it felt like he was encouraging his behavior in his music, and especially with many of his popular songs being about being kind of toxic. I get that, but again, I feel like this still shows a clear sign of character growth for The Weeknd. As Abel talks him out of his nerves, The Weeknd starts being more open to its fate, with Abel even showing love and appreciation for what The Weeknd did for him. The album really starts to wind down towards the major conclusion in the last 14 minutes. In the anti-penultimate song, Red Terror, Abel sings from the perspective of his mother, discussing Abel's upbringing and how she has always loved him, reassuring Abel, just like she did on Beauty Behind the Madness, that she will always love and stand beside him. This gets Abel to break down walls between the two as he ends the song apologizing to her for that particular weekend where he left and never looked back. This outro helps ease into the final 10 minutes or so of the album, where Abel affirms to us listeners that this is not necessarily the death of TheWeeknd, but rather the rebirth of him, now opting to be called by his old familiar name. Then, on the penultimate song, Without a Warning, as TheWeeknd's story draws to a close, Abel sends a message out to his fans. As this chapter of his life comes to a close, he hopes that people would still go out and support the new him. This track mirrors Rolling Stone from Thursday, a song with a similar message, as Rolling Stone was initially about how now that TheWeeknd was entering the mainstream, he hoped that his fans would still support him. He once more reflects on how detrimental TheWeeknd was to his life, and once more hopes that people understand why he has to go. Leading us to our somber conclusion to the trilogy and TheWeeknd himself. The title track, Hurry Up Tomorrow. This angelic choir starts off the song, clearly hinting at TheWeeknd finally meeting God. On this beautiful closer, TheWeeknd speaks to God once more and repents for his sins, the people he hurt, and the irreversible damage that he's done to himself, or Abel, in hopes that when he will be fully reborn as Abel, he will do his best to repair what he has damaged and will see heaven when he dies. He once more apologizes to his mother for becoming TheWeeknd, this persona going against everything his mother wanted for him, ignoring her initial wishes. And he ends the song asking for heaven when he dies, wishing that he will one day have to experience no more pain. Now, the album ends on what would be the perfect transition back into high for this, the intro to House of Balloons, and the exact start of TheWeeknd character. And if you put the two songs on a 4-second crossfade, it's very clear. But Hurry Up Tomorrow cuts off that transition in the last 2 seconds, leaving pure silence. And that was clearly intentional. This sudden cut is meant to highlight that Abel is finally free of the forever looping cycle that brought him to this point. He is finally ready to move forward, no longer as TheWeeknd, but as that old familiar name, Abel Tesfaye, ending TheWeeknd's story in kind of the same spirit it started, in such a tragically beautiful way. I've got to say, that album was an emotional fucking roller coaster. Oh my goodness. One thing I've noticed when making this video is that Abel has never said his real name throughout his entire solo discography. And that feels like such a distinct point to make after going through everything. Whether or not this was an intentional choice, as I can't imagine he planned his entire discography back in 2009, it does mean that there will be a very easy distinction between TheWeeknd and Abel. And I've got to say, this album, the transitions, the extended versions of songs like Sao Paulo, the features, dude. Yes, it does seem like the story got a bit convoluted towards the end of these projects, that most likely having to do with the fact that this album is technically a companion piece to a movie, but still, I think he tied up his story pretty beautifully. Now, as we are currently living in the Hurry Up Tomorrow era, only time will tell how things move forward. The biggest things that have happened for Abel so far have been the critical acclaim and fan reception of this project, his surprise performance of Timeless with Cardi at the Grammys, that following an entire segment where the Grammy committee apologized to him directly, which that's some goat shit right there, only he can make them do that, and his feature on Cardi's long-anticipated music album. Yes, I can't believe we got it either, believe me. Featuring on the track Rather Lie, the two performing the song and Timeless together recently at Rolling Loud, with Nav, Young Dabo, and Kai Cenat on the stage, raging along with everyone. And I'm so happy for Dabo, holy hell, I'm so happy for that, man. Now, my opinions on the After Hours trilogy in total. Is it the absolute perfect end to TheWeeknd? No. But was he still able to give this character a satisfying send-off? Absolutely. Abel has always been good at creating cinematic atmospheres for each of his albums, excluding Starboy, and it is very apparent in this trilogy, and the most obvious with Hurry Up Tomorrow. partly because it's kind of like a film soundtrack as well. But the biggest issues with the trilogy, I feel, are present on Dawn FM and Hurry Up Tomorrow. Don't get it twisted, they're great albums, but I feel like the two deviate the story a bit. With Dawn FM being this transition period where Abel is spending most of his time just waiting for the end to come, while TheWeeknd's main story is going on, it feels like the B plot is taking over the main story of the album. Plus, in terms of sound, while Abel and his producers match the whole 80s thing to a T, and it does sound amazing, the upbeatness of a lot of these instrumentals kind of makes it feel like you're listening to a greatest hits from the 80s compilation, and not engaging in the second part of a major overarching story. A lot of the theatrical feel from After Hours was lost on this project and was more or less replaced with the intermissions on the radio. And they work really well, but makes these projects feel a bit disjointed. And with Hurry Up Tomorrow, I think the album also unintentionally derailed the plot a bit. And again, I think the major reason for that is because this is a companion piece to a film that, to our knowledge as of recording, is disconnected from the past two albums and is its own separate entity. Now, only time will tell if these projects do connect when the movie comes out, and I'll maybe make a video on that, but we will have to wait and see. It does make up for Dawn FM's lack of theatrics, but does feel a bit disjointed with these skits and interludes on this project, like the one on Reflections Laughing. But besides those criticisms, I firmly believe that Abel crafted a great trilogy that is most definitely worthy of closing TheWeeknd's character. But now that we've discussed his entire discography, it's time to get a bit personal here, because I think it's important to close this video reflecting on his legacy and what his music means to me personally. Now, unfortunately, I'm not a Day One EXO fan, sorry, mainly because I was a fucking child when he started. I do vaguely remember seeing Abel's thumbnails when elementary school Will wanted to watch the Headlines music video and any other Drake songs from that era on repeat. But I never clicked on them because, you know, the black and white pictures of you know, a random woman's lips scared me. I've been scared of the host since day one. I became more aware of TheWeeknd around the same time that the mainstream did, when Earned It dropped. I remember hearing the song on Vine so many times, but not knowing who made it. But I would quickly come to know his name when The Hills dropped, and when songs like Can't Feel My Face and Often would dominate all of summer 2015. I got a bit more into his music when Starboy dropped, as I was constantly bumping the title track, Stargo Interlude, and Reminder around that time. I was more aware of his popular songs and enjoyed them, but it wasn't until 2020 that I really started getting into him. Yep. Time for LxgendaryWill to be overtly honest and embarrass himself on the internet again. You see, around this time, I'm so glad women do not watch rap commentary videos, because who would want to watch this genre of videos when DJ Academics is at the forefront? I'm so glad. You see, around this time, I had a crush on a girl who was a major fan, always asking to play his songs over Discord whenever we and the homies were chopping it up. And like any guy would do to impress the huzz, I immediately started to look into his back catalog. The first song that I heard from Trilogy was What You Need. And of course, I listened to the singles for After Hours as they came out, and was already pretty impressed. But then the After Hours single dropped, and I fell in love with the song immediately. And I was incredibly hyped for the release of this album. And it was released at probably the best time. The first week when flood invasion lockdown had started. For the first few weeks, our school system didn't assign any homework and kind of halted any kind of like projects and things like that in general. So I was relatively free to do whatever I wanted. So I stayed up all night in an Xbox party chat with her and another friend, and when the clock hit midnight, we all went to go listen to the album individually. So then, I would open up the janky Spotify app on my Xbox One S. This is the Series X controller, but the One S one is broken. And in America. Open up Doom 2016, as I was playing it for the first time back then, and just dove straight in. And I was truly blown away. This was the first full-length album I had heard from him, and it immediately set the bar extremely high. Like, I had to take a good minute to collect myself before returning into the party chat, man. Like, oh my goodness. I mentioned back in the X video from No One Wants to Fall to Heaven Okay, X video probably could have phrased that better. That question mark was the first album that I've ever listened to in its entirety, sparking my love and appreciation for music as an art form. And while that statement is still true, After Hours gave me the extra push to look beyond some of the hit songs from what are nowadays my favorite artists and try to understand their stories from the beginning. The After Hours single to this day is my favorite song from Abel and one of my favorite songs of all time. And having all the extra context of what led him to make this song makes it hit even harder. I mean what I said in the last video, and I am repeating it again now. It is such a perfect juxtaposition of the man that he used to be, and that's what makes this song so beautiful. As you could guess, I went nowhere with that crush and was admittedly pretty bummed. On top of my terrible mental health around that time that I've discussed before on this channel, the admittedly scary time of the flood invasion, I found myself listening to tracks from the album quite often. I can even recount a moment where I was alone in my basement playing Halo 4 on Legendary, trying to torture myself, of course, and I don't know what it was. I was listening to a lot of not so happy music with Abel in the mix, and at a certain point, I just paused the game and paused the music, and I just sobbed. I talked about this kind of thing with Frank Ocean as well, though I can't really relate to the fallout of a relationship and heartbreak in that aspect truly. Still, his music helped me during these shitty times, as I'm sure it has for many other people. But after re-listening to his discography over 4 times at this point for the sake of research, I've also grown an even bigger admiration for Abel. He is capable of telling such dark and reflective stories, and it's unapologetic. You can tell he has so much passion for his craft, and that is reflected in almost everything he does. Like, you can easily make criticisms of The Idol, and it's fair, but the fact that he was able to use his name and use his status and do one of his other major passions, create a cinematic TV show, and is now going to release his own movie he's starring and directing in, that's some GOAT shit. And despite having a rough youth, ironically, it's probably one of the best ways things could have turned out for him. Abel could have easily taken his friend and classmates' advice and maybe had been successful on Canadian Idol. I mean, have you heard this man's voice? But he would probably be damned to an eternity of making mediocre pop and R&B music, most likely it being written for someone else. From the jump, he did it his way, and it paid off amazingly. TheWeeknd will go down as one of the most influential moments in not just R&B and hip-hop, but in all of music. There is a reason why I'm releasing this video today. Hopefully, if I can get this video out on time. This very same weekend 14 years ago, Abel dropped House of Balloons, the project that started it all, and I felt like making this video was one of the best ways that I could honor his legacy. If I had to rank all of his projects, from best to worst, excluding compilations and live albums, and also excluding Trilogy, because it's just a compilation of the first 3 tapes. God, I'm going to get cooked in the comments for this one. It would probably have to go... Hey, so I kind of messed up when recording my ranking. So I'm going to do this again. My ranking would go Kissland. Thursday. I forgot to say Thursday. Starboy. Dawn FM. My Dear Melancholy. Echoes of Silence. Hurry Up Tomorrow. Then for our top 3, Beauty Behind the Madness, House of Balloons, and of course, After Hours. I look good as fuck, man. Holy shit. And me ranking my top 5 favorite songs from him, including features, it would probably have to go Echoes of Silence, The Hills, Faith, FML by the guy who shops at Aldi, and of course, After Hours. And the thing is, I want to explain why FML is at my number 2. Let me first make sure Audacity is still working. Ooh, let's make sure I'm still recording. Oh my god. Oh fuck. Oh, thank god. Okay. Ooh. Alright. I'm sorry. You guys don't understand. I've talked about this before, but when I first recorded the FML video the same night I ended up in the hospital, the recording failed 4 times, and I've never gotten over that. So I just needed to check. Now, I'm sure some of you who have been subscribed to this channel for a minute think that this is me just trying to find an opportunity to glaze yay, and believe me, those days are long over. But to me, The Weeknd being on this song is another example of quite literally the perfect feature. At first, when reflecting on this, my first thought was like, yeah, I could not imagine anyone else but Abel's voice on that song, and I still believe that's true. I mean, like, I love Travis on the original version, and even The Dream did his thing on some of the leaks, but thinking about any kind of popular artist from around that time, or even now, there is no one on earth, I believe, that could have given such a beautifully haunting performance like he did. But on top of that, given the extra context of his discography and his career up until that point, it's also just perfect. Abel's last album before The Life of Pablo came out was one where he talks about hitting rock bottom and in the end recognizes his issues and wants to make a genuine effort to fix them. And again, I talk about this more in depth in the FML video, of course, but that's what the song is about. Ye recognizing his problems and vowing to fix them. Even though now, 9 years removed from that project, things are significantly worse for that man and he needs serious mental help. Still, I've also said this in the last 2 Kanye related rants I've done, that this song has retroactively become a cautionary tale of the consequences of losing your very identity and your morals. Recognizing that at the end of the day, only you can mention yourself. Only you can rectify your mistakes and improve on yourself, and only if you are willing to admit your faults. And with the ending of The Weeknd's trilogy, it is abundantly clear that he's taken that message to heart. Especially with the certain things that the man who made this song is doing right now. It is a message that has continued resonating with me over the past 5 years. That song truly means so much to me. And I'll probably get some line from Abel's chorus tattooed on me one day. I'm not even gonna lie. There's no other artist that could have done that song justice, that could have rewritten the chorus and made it fit as well as he did. Which is why I'm going to need to hear The Weeknd perform this song during the After Hours Till Dawn tour. According to Wikipedia, FML has never been performed live outside of maybe 1 or 2 shows during the St. Pablo era. And after looking tirelessly, I could find no performance on the internet, which is why I'ma need Abel to do this song for the one time. Please. I look like a crazy person again, don't I? Look, I'm dead serious, man. Whoever runs that Abel's Post account on Instagram, someone needs to clip this section and tag this man, Abel, repeatedly. He needs to hear this, bro. I swear to God. By any means necessary. I will be there on the August 2nd show in Landover. Bro, I'll start selling crack if I got to, bro. I finna be in the pit. I'm gonna be there. I'm going to be there. Even if it's just during some kind of intermission and you just off the cuff sing the chorus with no backing instrumental or anything. That's enough. I just need to hear this song before I die. Editing this section right now, man. Hey, bro, Abel, you talking about on Hurry Up Tomorrow that you shy of a Billy? Just give a nigga 10 bands and I'll make tour visuals for it, bro. Hell, I'll do it for free. I just need to hear the song. So yeah, in conclusion, someone clip this and send it to him now, please. Pretty please. But that aside, I'm making this video for one main reason, and that is that The Weeknd deserves to be remembered. From the outside looking in, the common misconception of him is that he just makes fuckboy music. And I mean, considering that some of his most popular songs feature lyrics like, "Can you let me stretch that pussy out or not?" I don't blame people for having this opinion. It's literally a meme in this community of how, like, you know, he has the most beautiful voice in the world and talks about either doing the worst shit to somebody or doing the freakiest thing you've heard in your entire life. Like, I'm getting off track. I'm remembering that one video of him at the concert with the mic. He just starts furiously licking his, like, flicking his tongue. And, like, one of the top comments was like, what song does he have where he needs to be doing all that? And then someone replied being like, well, a lot of them. And that's kind of true. But again, this whole, like, he just makes fuckboy music thing is further from the truth. The story of The Weeknd is of a young man who is quickly thrust into celebrity life, trying to avoid the ghosts of his past, and unfortunately succumbing to said ghosts on multiple occasions, due to facing extreme heartbreak in one way or another. But after hitting the lowest of lows, was finally able to reflect on the past, learn from his mistakes, take notes, you know, certain artists, and move forward. This story of redemption is something that anyone can relate to. Even though I'm sad that the Weeknd story is coming to a close, this also makes me more excited for what is to come of his music and creative ventures in the future. He said that the Weeknd character could come back in some capacity one day. I mean, hell, I was even under the impression that when Rather Lie dropped, he would be featured under a different name, trying to fully start the whole distancing from the Weeknd thing. But this still leaves the door open for so many possibilities. Will he create music as just purely Abel Tesfaye? Will he create a new character? He's gonna become the weekday. The prophecy has been fulfilled. We'll just have to wait and see. But in the 0.0000001% chance that the Weeknd is watching this video, I would like to sincerely say thank you. You bore your soul in front of the world to create some of the most thought-provoking, powerful, and downright beautiful music over the past 14 years. Even willing to share parts of your story that don't paint you in the best light. Your very clear allegiance to artistic integrity is something that will not go ignored. Thank you for some of the greatest 14 years in music ever. Your legacy will live on, and you will truly become timeless. But I take back all of these nice things I just said if I don't hear FML at that show. August 2nd. Mark it in your calendar, please. And before I properly wrap up this video, I want to thank you guys for making it towards the end. Like I said at the beginning, this is going to be my 100th video on the channel, and I wanted to make something that was special to me. This month also marks the 1-year anniversary of when I started releasing episodes of No One Wants to Fall Out of Heaven, and this series means the world to me. Like, I've talked about this on my socials before, legendary.com, by the way, that's where all my socials will be. I coded the website myself. It's something that to this day has struck such a chord in me, and it's given me the courage and the opportunity to create. Like, truly, without this creative outlet, especially in the era of my life where I'm at right now, I don't know what I'd be doing. Having a place to express my opinions and express my feelings and creativity has just been amazing. And even though, as of recording this very video, I only just hit 3,000 subscribers and my channel has not even passed 300,000 views, I'm still astonished at what I've been able to accomplish, you know? Like, yeah, I'm not going to be, you know, streaming with Kai Cenat and, you know, selling my soul to the alt-right pipeline and talking to minors, you know, as you're supposed to do when you become famous on the internet. I'm still so proud of what I've been able to accomplish over this past year. Like, I'm obviously not going to share these DMs, but I still think about DMs that I've gotten privately about how, like, people have resonated with the story I shared on that project and how they appreciated my creative work and things like that. And even one comment that I pinned on the finale where someone said that the Coding Crazy video helped them rethink the way that alcohol was conducting their life. Dude, I think about that comment almost every day. It's an absolute honor to create something like that, to create something that resonated with people and that helped somebody. That is something that gives me such great pride. Even like reflecting on the project, I don't think it's perfect, but it's still something I'm so proud of making. Like, I've talked about the FML video being probably one of the best videos I've ever made, and I think this video right now might give it some competition, but the goal with this one was to make a video in the same vein, where it's a topic that I am incredibly passionate about, and I think I was able to accomplish that goal. At least this time, the video has a happier conclusion, where the artist I'm talking about isn't doing whatever he's doing. I'm gonna shut up about it now. I'll be quiet. But again, I want to thank you all so much for the support over the past year. It's been insane. I have stuff I want to do in the summer. I low-key might have to start crowdfunding because it's quite expensive, but I'll cross that bridge when I get to it. I want to thank you guys so much again for your support, and truly I encourage you, when you're done with this video, go listen to After Hours and then listen to everything in his discography up until the end, if you haven't already. But yeah, thank you guys again so much for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one. Let's go in this. You don't know what's in store.